What would you know of struggle, perfect son? When have you fought against the mutilation of your mind? When have you had to do anything more than tally compliances and polish your armor? Which one of us landed on a paradise of civilization to be raised by a foster father? Which one of us was given armies to lead after training in the halls of the Macragian High Riders? Honor is resisting a tyrant when all others suckle and grow fat on the hypocrisy he feeds them. You know nothing of honor.
Running. A child running through snow that burned the soles of his feet, and the cold air that was roaring in his lungs. Whooping shrieks emanate from the pack chasing him. He doesn't understand their harsh syllables, but knows enough that they are trying to kill him. One tackles him into the snow. He is gasping as his hands find purchase upon a rock. He begins to swing it down, again and again, until warm blood splashes his face. He feels the creature's fear and pain, as if it were his own. He cries but doesn't stop swinging, until the creature before him stops breathing. The boy stands, coated in head to foot in the life essence of his hunter. He turns to the handful of beady eyes watching him. The roles have changed, and now they are the hunted. The child stumbles over stones that cut his feet. He has lost nearly all feeling in his outer limbs, as exhaustion threatens. He has no idea where he is, who he is. Only flashes of a face through glass are left to him. He hears voices, calling out from beyond sight. These are not the monsters. These are lower, closer to the boy's own when he had cried out in anger and pain, when he had swung those stones. He catches sight of one of them. They are similar to the boy, only swaddled in furs. It lifts a strange device, and needles shoot out and pierce the boy's skin. The boy cries out in pain again. Then his limbs begin to feel even more sluggish. The boy lashes out at the figures surrounding him, shouting and riddling his flesh with even more needles. Finally, the boy's vision goes dark. The boy awakens. Metal is clamped around his hands and feet. He is amongst others like him now, dressed in rags and shuffling nervously. He looks up. A tiered amphitheater roars with the sounds of thousands. Horns blare from around the edge of the pit, and a crowd erupts in cheers. Large circular vents built into the sides of the walls twist open, and a torrent of brackish liquid sluices down onto the ground. The tang of the fluid fills the boy's nose, and he sees the fumes curl from it as it rushes over the floor of the pit. The people in chains rush to the center structure within the Colosseum. The boy feels his first human contact. A hand, as the others around him help each other. Silver orbs above crackle with sounds that the boy is beginning to recognize. They are offering commentary. Cheers for the crowd as the first screams begin. The towering central structure is crowded with people, and those at the bottom howl in pain as the brackish liquid begins to eat away at their feet. Some try to scramble up the steps, only to be seized by those beneath them and hurled to their deaths. Humanity abandons them, replaced by the frothing animal instinct to survive. And the crowd seems to love this. The boy scrambles upwards. He is easily stronger than any of them. In the howls of panicking screaming, the boy feels his instincts trying to take over. He could end them. It was as if the movements were painted before him, but he squashes the urge. It feels wrong. The water is now a blurry pink sludge of decomposing humanity. Every scream, every death, the boy feels it within, as if the pain was his own. And the fluid is still rising. It is clear only one can survive. The boy sees it, and he begins to kill, trying his best to cause the least amount of pain for them. He ends the last dozen, standing upon the tallest point with barely the space for one. Behold, people of Desia, for your coin and happiness we have a victor. The silver orb barks at the crowd as the cheers die away. We present this boy who has won the devil's tears. Which house has wagered their coin on this victory, and thus has won them to their stable? The orb pauses. House Valkyr! And the crowd cheers again. The orb moves closer to the boy, asking for his name. He has no name. We name thee Angron then, the orb pronounces. Child of the mountain, in the old tongue. Behold, Angron Valkyr, your newest combatant. This game? Through great effort, the boy speaks for the first time. The orb simply laughs. The child lashes out, grabbing the orb and trying to crush it. It sparks with blue light, making the boy's muscles cease. Ah, this one has passion. Still some strength within you yet, eh? The orb sends another wave of electricity through Angron's prone form. That is very good, Angron Valkyr. You will need all the strength in the world for what we have waiting for you. Oh, Kuniglis wore that pot last, said a gap-toothed gladiator. Angron had been slow, and all that was left from the blood-stained table of equipment was a helmet, still wet from its previous user. He died. Not well, not quick. The gap-toothed veteran continued. Pray his shade is gone. You avoid the same. Angron placed the helmet upon his head, as the machines began to prod the mosh of men and women in chains. Die well, said the gap-toothed gladiator, looking back at Angron with his ugly smile. The sound of drums and cheers grew. Dust and sand spilled from the cracks in the ceiling above. The gladiators began to roar, beating fists against their chests and ramming their heads together in clangs. The gladiators were pushed into a coliseum even larger than before. Dust began to kick up from hundreds of feet, as the roar of the crowd grew to deafening heights. Angron could feel the unrestrained fervor in the crowd, a monumental lust for blood, and their lack of empathy and desire for others to suffer. An axe swung near Angron's face. It was slow, and he stepped aside effortlessly. Combat bloomed around him, as he sensed the axe wielder's desire to kill him. Angron punched him square in the heart, and the gladiator fell into spasms on the ground, his last breaths leaving him. Angron picked up the axe. He turned to the violence around him and started to swing. Angron! Angron! The crowd roared. Impacts rippled down his arms as Angron killed and killed. This time his revulsion was lesser, until finally he stood over the gap-toothed gladiator from before. He feels his fear and thinks to spare him, until a knife punctures his gut. Now the revulsion is gone, and for the first time Angron feels hate. The axe now feels natural in his hands, as the final swing descends. Months have passed. He had been a child with no name. Now he is Angron, and larger than any mortal man. The gladiator's slave hove is a cave, damp and near absent of light. Men and women are huddled together across the floor, wearing the tattered clothes and manacles of slaves. Some growl in hate, some speak in madness, others cry out in their sleep. Who are these people, Onomaeus? Angron growls. What kind of monsters are they, who come here to revel in our agony? An older man, covered in scars and white in his beard, hands Angron a cloth to clean the blood from his face. Onomaeus sits next to the boy he had taken pity to in the months before. There was a kindness in his eyes, and for the first time in Angron's life, he feels love radiate from another human being. You are the mountain child, yes, says Onomaeus. Never seen anything other than that peak, and these caves, and the hot dust. You've never seen where these monsters go to lay their heads. The lives they find themselves having to live. I have. I was born into it. The slums, the desperation they breed. Waking each day to fight with too many others, over less than there was the day before. Feeling trapped. Onomaeus shakes his fist, sending a rattle through his chains. Just as surely as we are here. Sometimes. He lays a hand on Angron's shoulder. Sometimes what you need more than anything else in the world is to know that there is someone lower than you. Onomaeus looks up, as if looking past the crowds beyond the cave. Those people aren't monsters. Spare them your anger, because there are more than enough real monsters that deserve it. It was his 10th birthday, yet now Angron was far larger than any man. Once again he kills in the red sands before a crowd that chants his name. The killing no longer causes him pain. Now he fights as hard as he can, to give honor to his opponents. The sands are his home, and those shackled with him are his family now. Their weapons are chained to them. They twist the ropes of scars, many having black ropes to mark honorable defeats. Angron's alone is red, signifying victory. He inflicts it with great effort to prevent the supernatural healing he seems to possess. For months, he and his fellow slaves had fought machines, twisted monsters and each other. Even witches who fouled minds flayed men's skin, and boiled others alive with their accursed touch. These wounds are scars that never heal the burning hatred he has for the witch. And yet for all he kills, Angron is jealous. He is jealous of the dead, for their torment from the noble High Riders has ended. Angron roused. He felt the numbing effects of narcotics wear off as he awakened in darkness. He was being compressed by walls as hard as stone covered in thick mucus. Worst of all, the walls were moving. "A eating worm!" a voice cries out. Angron recognizes it as his friend Gladiator Hex. "They've put us in a damn yetting worm!" Hex wails. Placing victims within the Nucerian sea worm was an amusing event to their ruling High Riders. They sipped their wine and feasted as the time ticked away. Either the victims found a way out, or suffocated. Angron ceased breathing, holding his breath as long as he could to save oxygen for Hex. "Take hold of me!" Angron cried out. He reached down and pulled Hex's arms around his waist. "Hold on to me, Hex!" Angron began to claw his way forward, through the giant's digestive tract. Stomach acid began to sear his flesh. The pain was excruciating. New vigor surged within him. So many times he had fought to kill, and now he fought to save a life. Through enormous jaws, Angron clawed forward, the light finally reaching his eyes as a wave of cheers erupted from the arena's crowd. Angron spluttered forward, holding the still form of Hex, and he wasn't breathing. Angron began to desperately compress his chest, willing his friend to live. "Angron Thalkir is trying to resuscitate the vaunted Hex. Can he do it? Will he prevail and drag him from the jaws of death itself? Speak with your coin, friends. New odds are made. What will you wager?" The silver maggot eyes barked. Angron heard the laughing, the cheers and the sadistic banter of the High Riders, living languishingly in their pews. House Thalkir and others enjoying the misery unfolding before them. And when Angron fails, they begin to laugh even harder. "They didn't want you to save him," says Onomaeus, taking a seat next to Angron. The giant cleaned his friend's blood from his hands, but he is unable to meet his foster father's gaze. "That isn't what our lives are to the High Riders," Onomaeus continues. "The only thing they want from us is something for them to laugh at, and something to cheer over when we die. That is all we will ever be to them." The two hear whimpering next to them, as it echoes around the cave. Angron peers down at a youth, haunted by his first blooding in the red sands. The youth kicks and cries, the horror of what he has seen terrorizing his dreams. Angron rises. He walks over to the youth and places his hands upon him. Angron closes his eyes. He sees visions of blood and pain, screaming and hate. Angron feels it all as if it were his own and winces. Then the youth stops writhing, and serenity overcomes his features. Onomaus stares at Angron as the gladiator pulls his hand away. The old man looks between the becalmed youth and Angron. "What did you do?" "I don't know." Angron shakes his head. "What is the first thing you remember, Angron?" "The very first thing." "Cold." "The mountain?" Onomaus asks. Angron frowns. "Different from the mountain. This was an unnatural cold. Metal, not stone. There were voices. Then light. Then..." He grips his head. "I can't remember." "You aren't meant for this place," says Onomaus. "Wherever you came from, whatever it is that you are destined for, you will not find it within these walls. And one day, these caves and these chains will not be able to hold us, and you'll be free to find your destiny." "My destiny is beside you, Onomaus, with my brothers and sisters, living free of the hot dust." The grizzled fighter smiles. "Then free of the hot dust we shall be." Other gladiator slaves approach nervously. They have seen what Angron has done, and too desire the respite. At the center of an unbroken chain, Angron sat, his features racked with pain, as for the first time in lifetimes, the slaves on Usiria's red sand slept peacefully. Angron felt it all. Lifetimes of torment inflicted by tyrants. Tears of blood streaked down Angron's face. He and his people shall one day be free. Two warriors in mismatched plate stalked across the red sands. Yaconis and Turgidian. They wear the Ramesium, a pair of bladed iron horns upon their helmet. It is this mark, more than any other, that conveys to Angron that these warriors have walked the Berserker's path for too long, and can no longer see anything but blood. Cables hang from their skulls and dangle like dreads. Angron recognizes it instantly. The butcher's nails. An implant that causes unbearable pain, except within the depths of bloodlust and rage. Angron and Onomaus stand alone. Those two have been forced to take the nails. His mentor whispers to him. A warrior who wants to live has no defense against those who doesn't care if he dies. The old warrior salutes, in the gladiatorial custom. His honor is unanswered, and the berserkers let out a blood-curdling howl and charge. Angron hefts his axe, battling in a desperate struggle to match his opponent's ferocity, whilst keeping his mentor alive. After 17 minutes of grueling battle that nearly cost Angron and his mentor's life, Yaconis and Turgidian's headless corpses finally slam against the red sands. The crowd roars, screaming Angron's name. The silver-ored maggot eyes finally descend. "You two are the greatest warriors, and favourites of the crowd. What say you, my people? Shall we see who is greater?" Angron's blood runs cold, as the people of Deschia roar in their assent. A single word hushes the thousands to a pin-drop silence. "No." "No?" sneers the maggot eyes, the machines cackling with irritation as they swarm around Angron. "It is not the place of Angron Thalkir to say no. Fight now, and kill him in spectacular fashion, and we shall forget your disobedience this one time." "I will not fight him," Angron says defiantly. "If you want to feed more blood to these people so badly, then come down yourselves and face me. Or do the paper-skinned high riders lack the courage?" "Angron," Onomaus warns. "No," snarls Angron. "No more. Our whole lives we have killed for them. I will not allow them to take you as well." Angron can feel the pride and love swirl within his mentor. Onomaus spreads his arms wide, turning to where their masters watch. Come on then, fight us. We'll use no weapons if that'll put steel in your backs rather than jelly. For the first time in Assyrian history, the people openly laugh at the High Riders. You are dogs, born to bleed for your betters, the maggots bark. Your lives have no value, and never have. And a dog who does not cringe before its master must be altered until he does so. Nails, nails, nails. The crowd begins to roar. Unbearable, agonizing pain. Angron feels the effect of High Rider narcotics wear off, as in tandem a skull-splitting agony lances into every fibre of his brain. He howled in a rage so deep his throat nearly tore. It was only hours later, when the biting of the nail settled to levels where conscious thought came back, that Angron realized he was chained deep within a High Rider tower. He barely remembered anything. He had flashes of the Red Sands, flashes of a crowd roaring his name as he was splitting a skull, blood soaking his hands, and when he realized who it belonged to, he felt his heart break. A haunting cry sounded for 3 days and nights, as Angron wept for the only man who had ever loved him, the man who had spent his life fostering an uprising and freedom for his brothers and sisters, a man who called him son, who dried the bloodstains from his body, who taught him everything he knew. Onomaus was dead. And each happy thought, each fond memory was met by the stabbing of the nails. There was only one emotion that offered reprieve from the biting, and Angron had plenty of it. Rage. I expected more, Angron whispered. His voice, once gruff and deliberate, now was marred with a guttural rage. The mountain snow cold didn't register on his callous skin. It had been nearly a year since Angron had leapt from the Red Sands, in the bloody uprising, followed by thousands of his brothers and sisters. The High Rider armies had come, bearing firearms and mechanical constructs, wrought from their twisted vaults. Yet none could match the ferocity of slaves who had spent a lifetime in combat. To the mountains of Angron's discovery, the once champion of the Red Sands led his people, enacting a guerrilla campaign that earned their epithet, the Eaters of Cities. Angron stared down at the High Rider youth, frozen in fear in his broken construct. Once, when I was still and growing, I thought all you people were gods, divine beings who shaped the lives and fates of us who lived in chains. Then I tore your gates down, and what did I find? Men, weak, paper-skinned little men like this. He jabbed at the nails. To me. Angron traced a grubby finger along the man's skull. But there are no gods. Nothing to stop me from vindication, and nothing to save you from it. He lowered his face, until the breath slashing from his nostrils made the man beneath him squirm. Make plenty of room in whatever darkness I am sending you to. Back within the cave, Angron took stock of what remained of his rebellion. 56 gladiators were left alive. He remembered the fallen, memorizing every one of their names, their faces, their victories. He remembered fighting with them and against them, turning their triumph ropes together and never gloating as they twisted black and he always red. They had carved a bloody path, taking satisfaction for every High Rider they killed personally. He cut deep wounds into his own flesh, cut so deep even he would scar, just to draw enough blood. For the mountain was barren, and there was little else to consume except their leader's vitality. Angron did this for them willingly, for the butcher's nails had robbed him of all other happiness except his family. Angron and his family sat close together, in the last of the warmth, for the bitter mountain winds were rising. He looked into each of their eyes. He saw no fear, The end was coming. Soon the converging High Rider armies would find them, and there would be no survival. Only a choice. One that had been denied to them all. A choice of freedom. A choice of destiny. We fight them here, now, while we still can, said Angron. If we die, we die. But not to this mountain. We fall free, people, fighting together as brothers and sisters, and taking as many of those paper-skinned High Rider bastards with us to hell as we can. Chuckles echoed around the cave. Laughter reigned that night, as they traded stories. The nails bit in Angron's mind, but he shoved down the pain. He would not let it take this away from him. One last time the Eaters of Cities slept in peace, as Angron took away their pain. Dawn rose. Angron and his Eater of Cities saw the growing shield wall of grey, marching up the mountain, their High Riders at the centre. Each of the Nucerian nobles was unique, every one of them a monument of gilded excess, wholly different from their fellows. Some of them sailed through on the air on great silver wings, whilst others were borne aloft by bulky gauntlets, or reclined upon filigreed couches. They wore animal masks, all exquisitely crafted into gaudy overindulgence, and inlaid with enough gems to feed a kingdom. With his brothers and sisters by his side, Angron charged. Gladiators were torn apart by range volleys, until they smashed into the shield wall. Nucerian bodies were sent flying, carved apart. Heads ripped from torsos, Angron revelled in his family's slaughter. Axes in hand, Angron carved bloody vengeance, until he caught sight of a High Rider he recognized. The arena announcer. A master of his personal torment. Angron leapt higher than any mortal man could, slamming down next to the terrified noble, sending showering blood and snow and rock around him. All tyrants must die, the thought sang in his head, as the nails began to sing. He grasped the petrified man and lifted his body above his head. He pulled the man apart with ease and roared. He was amongst them now, and to the song of his families and his death, he prepared to gut the scrambling High Riders. He reeled back his fist, until a white light enveloped him. His punch never landed. Time froze. He watched the blood spray from a dying King Guard, splurting into the air in a spreading nebula of crimson. Though his body was locked in place, Angron found his mind and senses were still within his control, and they gravitated immediately to the presence that appeared before him, in a blinding sphere of light.
What have they done to you?
The voice was thunder and ice in his brain. Angron's nails bit deep, punishing him and the invasion, demanding that he kill the speaker, and then everything else.
Who?
Whispered Angron, finding that he could still speak.
Who are?
I am the Emperor, and you are coming with me.
Where?
Beyond this place, to the stars.
My brothers. My sisters. I won't abandon them. No. Whatever it is you want of me, I refuse. My place is here, with my true kin. I fight here. I die here.
The voice was silent for a moment. Angron almost sensed regret in the thunder that echoed through his mind when it spoke again.
Then I am sorry.
There was a storm of light, and an excruciating sense of tearing. Angron thudded to the ground, but it was no longer covered in snow. His knees smashed down, cracking a floor of shining mosaic tile. The scent of blood was gone, replaced by stale ozone. His eyes stung from a sudden golden light, not from a weak sun of Nuceria, but a constellation of floating orbs gifting illumination to an immense vaulted chamber. The largest of them hung at the center of the chamber, a brilliant sphere of radiance like a captured sun. Angron recognized it as the source of the voice. Price's artworks covered the walls, taking pride of place between torn banners and a myriad of exotic weapons. The floor shook beneath Angron, and his ears itched from the electric thrum of machinery. He fought to shake off the disorientation, and realized he was not alone. A phalanx of golden armored warriors surrounded him, each holding a crackling halberd longer than they were tall. Seconds before, Angron had been in the center of a battlefield, and the butcher's nails were still in command of him. He saw strangers on all sides of him, brandishing weapons. The nails saw blood, begging to be spilled. The closer the golden warriors took one step further, and Angron killed him for it. A blink of an eye was all it took before he cast the corpse to the ground, torn in half from collar to groin by his bare hands. The others advanced, the halberds at his throat and spasming with angry chains of lightning. Angron found a dozen weaknesses in each of them, angles left open and postures vulnerable. He would make this entire room red, until you couldn't see the gold. He would
Cease!
Angron cried out in the renewed invasion of his consciousness. The nails rebelled against it, and did the only thing they had the ability to do. He fell to his knees, stomach clenching as it sent a torrent of blood-laced vomit onto the deck. The searing light he believed a caged sun was in fact a being. Angron saw the silhouette of a man, or at least the shape of one, at its center. The source of the voice was stabbing into his skull. The golden warriors backed away in an instant, parting to allow the Emperor to come closer. Angron snarled, the very proximity of the entity causing his nails to bite.
Where am I?
He managed to hiss between clenched teeth.
You are on my ship, away from that planet.
Angron glared up.
My brothers! My sisters! Where?
What transpired below was regrettable. But we have not the time. You are meant for far grander things than a mere servile war.
The arrogance of the voice, the preening familiarity of it, rose Angron's ire to boiling.
If you are so mighty, why not help us? Why not step down from your golden palace here, down into the mud where the real struggle is born out? Instead, you rip me out from my destiny, from the only chance I had to ever grasp serenity, to fall a free man beside those with whom I twisted the rope and cast off the shackles.
Because I am the Emperor, and my eyes are set upon the galaxy, all her stars and worlds, and not simply the wars or tyrants of any single one. So shall your eyes be set, as you take up the mantle you were brought into this life to bear, the mantle of Primarch, to command your legion and unite the stars beneath my banner.
Something cold and crumbling welled up inside Angron at those words. It was the same sickening realization he'd had on the cliff. The reason why this Emperor, this blazing, incomprehensible being, had robbed him of a noble death. Why he hadn't let Angron fall with his brothers and sisters as he had sworn he would. He needed Angron, just like the High Riders did. Blood sport on the hot dust. Conquest of the galaxy. It is all the same. Two different masters. But in the end, Angron was always the slave.
I died down there,
Angron said bitterly, drawing the radiant Emperor into his fiery gaze.
with my brothers and sisters, freezing, starving, and free. Emperor or no, creator or no, all you will ever get of me is a shell, the ghost of Angron, who never left Nuceria.
The Emperor looked back at him, expressionless and aloof. Angron felt static crawl over his skin, and the reek of ozone flood his nose.
Then a ghost will have to suffice.
He killed them, one by one. These so-called warhounds. These warriors had come to him, absent of weapons, begging him to take his rightful place as their father. And he killed each one that darkened the door to the chamber they kept him prisoner in. Angron howled in rage. He had been taken from his glorious death by his brothers and sisters' side to meet this Emperor. So many answers in his life were finally his, and he hated it. He was what they called a Primarch, a superhuman crafted being, made from the genetic material of one calling himself the Emperor of mankind. From Terra, Angron had been whisked into the Immaterium, the Warp. A terrible accident that landed him on Nuceria and in the High Rider's chains. From Terra, this supremely powerful being, the Emperor, leads a great crusade to reunite mankind under one banner. And leading his armies are crafted warriors, sons enhanced and altered by Angron's own genetic material. The Warhounds, they call themselves. A legion of over 100,000 warriors, for Angron to command in the reconquest of the galaxy, spreading enlightenment and the imperial truth, the rejection of mysticism. It was slavery, a trading of one tyrant for another, an invader who would force their will upon others. For weeks Angron had howled in this tortured cage. He had been locked away within a flagship's quarters, as these so-called sons came to him one after another, each to plead that he lead them. He killed the first one before he had a chance to speak. Then one by one they came, all not resisting as he smashed and gored their bodies around the chamber. A dozen corpses of white and blue armor lay stained around him, until finally another entered. From the ceiling, Angron seized him by the neck and lifted him to his own face. He saw the instinct rise in this so-called Astarte, but again his hands dropped to his side. "Fight me!" Angron screamed into his face. Angron raised his fist ready to strike, until for a moment the nails didn't bite as deep. He pulled the Astartes close and whispered into his ear, "Why, I can see what you Astartes are made for. You're made to spill blood just as I am. You're not born normal men, any more than I was." His voice rumbled so deep the metal around reverberated it. Angron peered down and saw an image that made his nails sting. "Why are you smiling?" he roared, as he tossed the Astartes across the room. The sound of metal crunching reverberated as the Astartes plummeted to the ground, blood leaking from his armor. To Angron's surprise, the Astartes began to rise shakily. "My name is Kharn, and I am a warrior." A warrior, he called himself, yet he would not fight. He wouldn't know how to give him a gladiatorial bow. He had no scar twists. This Kharn and his brethren had been sent in place of the one that had stolen him. This Emperor, a ruler sending others to do his dirty work. Angron knew the kind. Kharn continued to wheeze out his next words. "We are your legion, made from your blood. We have fought from terror. We spilt blood and burned worlds, hounded species into oblivion in search for you. We do not fight you because you are our Primarch. We will never raise a hand against you. We plead for you to take your rightful place." Angron began to stalk around Kharn, as the Astartes hesitated, then finally spoke again. I envy them. The ones that fought with you. This is all we ask. A chance to fight with you." "You," Angron growled, though his tone showed less hostility. "No nails, no rope. Hope you've got a good head for mockery, Kharn of the so-called Legion. We'd have had sport with you in the camps." Angron's mind turned back to his people, and the rage returned. He lifted Kharn by the throat. "I don't know how they died," he wailed. "I can't go back to Deshia. I can't go back to the soil to make a black twist. I can't commemorate them. Why did your Emperor do this to me, Kharn?" He slammed Kharn against the steel deck. More blood leaked from the warrior, who still chose not to raise his hand. Angron slumped down next to the wall. He bore his hands into his temples, drawing blood, the nails sending shivers of pain down his body. "The great worms," Kharn managed to choke out. Angron didn't move. He listened, as Kharn through great effort spoke of a legion campaign. Great worms of vile intelligence and malice that the warhounds had battled. Kharn spoke of the desperate battle in the mud, the great fortifications of this Perturabo, who dried up the land and turned the terrain to their advantage. Then the Emperor had come. No High Rider languishing in his palace, but an avatar of war, whose prowess struck Kharn with awe. Kharn's face cracked with hope, as he saw Angron picturing the scene, running through it as if the tactical display map was before him. "Perturabo?" Angron managed to ask, his hand still at his temple. "A Primarch like him," Kharn explained. "One of 18. Sons of the Emperor to lead his vast armies and legions, formed from their genetic material." Angron saw the pride beam from Kharn's face, as once again he thought to his eaters of cities. "Fast we moved. Fast," he whispered to Kharn. "Not hanging between walls. Entrapment is death. Always forward. Always hunger for the enemy. Oh, my brothers and sisters, if only we had known how it would end. All that valor. The eaters of cities they called us. All the mountain fortresses burning. All the great coast stained in blood. Hosian, Miahor, Ulcame. We broke them at the river. Hung 1,000 High Riders from the vines." Angron's rage peaked again. He grabbed Kharn and pummeled him with a closed fist. "Fight me, warhound!" he yelled in desperation. Angron's rage began to ebb, when to his shock, this grave grub Kharn still lived. And still he would not fight his Primarch. Angron froze. He knelt down beside Kharn and whispered, "You are warriors, Kharn. I know warriors when I see them. This Emperor, he is the one you swore to." "We swore to each other," Kharn croaked. "Such devotion from such warriors," Angron whispered. He had seen. He had known this before. It was the bond of the Red Sands, the bonds of family. Angron rose and stood tall. If this Emperor could inspire such devotion, then... "This room, I can leave it?" Angron asked, in a tone that caught Kharn completely off guard. The doors to the chamber opened, and the leadership of the Warhounds stood stunned as their Primarch emerged. 8th Captain Kharn supported at his side, and near the point of death, but still alive. "Salute your Primarch, Warhounds," Kharn choked. "Salute him who led the Eaters of Cities. For we shall be the Eaters of Worlds." Cheers roared throughout the chamber, as a crooked smile emerged on Angron's face. "World Eaters. So you shall, brothers. You shall learn to cut the rope. We shall bleed and be brothers. Come with me, World Eaters. We must speak." They turned the rope. They brought the Red Sands into their ships the size of cities. They chained their weapons to their wrists. They gave the salute, and their tread marked hundreds of worlds when the Imperium of Man directed them. Yet still they could not keep up. Donned in bronze plate, reminiscent of his gladiatorial armor from the red sands of Nuceria, Angron Valkyr astrode the galaxy. The Eaters of Worlds, the 12th Legiones Astartes, warriors forging the growing Imperium of Man that had fought for nearly 2 centuries of war. And yet the 12th Legion's perseverance went unrewarded. They began to mold themselves into images of their father, and yet it was not enough. Countless worlds felt the wrath of a superhuman uncaged, a dual axe-wielding demigod who charged at the enemy with no matter to the tactical positions, a Primarch who left his warriors behind, a Primarch who saw only the ghosts of the family that could have lived. These so-called brothers, the mighty Horus Lupercal, Sanguinius, Perturabo, Guilliman, Corax, Lorgar, and more. Their stories only enraged Angron. How each had either grown in comfort, had friends and families. How some still stood by their side, mortals elevated whilst his was left to die. Hundreds of human and Xenos worlds bore the wrath of a Red Angel. Sometimes those who even crewed his ships. Even warriors from his own legion. Angron was a ghost. One who had become death, the destroyer of worlds. All until after a decade, the Primarch of the 12th Legion and his ship the Descending Edge disappeared. 2 years. 2 years of searching. Kharn and a squad of his brothers finished cutting their way through the jungle vegetation, halting before a cave that stunk of blood. Kharn ventured in alone. He descended through tunnels of enveloping darkness, finding fluted columns of stalagmites rising from the floor like choirs of stone. A small mountain of bones filled the center of the cave. "I knew they would send you, Kharn," a voice rumbled from atop the great mound of bones. "I knew no matter where I went, one day I would find you standing there," said Angron. Kharn looked around the chamber, his eyes dancing over the piles of bones, seeing human and all manner of beasts represented. "Why?" Kharn asked finally. "No people here," Angron grunted, missing the truth of Kharn's question. "Not civilized ones, anyway. Just tribal bands. Simple creatures that bring me the bones of their kills and tell me of monsters." "Angron, why are you here? Why have you left your legion?" Kharn said, taking an insistent step forward. "This isn't the first I went to," Angron continued. "I've been to over a dozen during these past years, walking across their surfaces, trying to find something strong enough to kill me." "To kill you?" Kharn narrowed his eyes. "Yes, Kharn," said Angron impatiently. "To kill me. I'm not supposed to be here anymore." The statement stunned Kharn to silence. "My true family. They died with weapons filling their hands, and enemies' blood on their faces, howling out their last breath as they went into oblivion in honor, in glory. I was meant to die like that, Kharn. With them. I can't go back and die at their side, like I was supposed to. He stole me away. He threw me out into this galaxy to fight his meaningless wars. But even then, nothing has changed. I never left the hot dust, Kharn. Not really. It's here, there, everywhere. It follows me, itching beneath my skin and coating my lungs in its poison. Your Emperor. That thing demands I call it father. He's just another High Rider, the same master that's always been there, just wearing a different mask. I won't meet my end serving as a tool of that golden tyrant who ripped me out from my destiny. I won't give him that satisfaction. So I left. I left it all. I went out here, hoping to find something that would end me in the way I want. The way they did. And what would they say to you? Said Kharn. Your brothers and sisters. If they saw you now. They looked up to you. They needed you and they fought by your side to the death. Without you ever having to ask. What would they say seeing you abandon us? Those who look up to you and need you and would die for you. To run away and sit alone and moulding in this cave. If they were anything like you say they were, sire, they would call you a coward. Angron almost killed Kharn on the spot, the nail sending a sting of pain washing through his body, as he rose in fury. I never asked for any of this. I never asked to be thrown into the stars to be nothing more than a slave building another man's dream. It isn't just his dream, Kharn pleaded. It is humanity's. The empire we are building, it will belong to all of us. Empire? Angron sneered at the word. What empire has been anything more than the ruins that are discovered by the one that rises after it? They never last, Kharn. Ever. And neither will this one. Return, and show us the true way, Kharn interjected. Teach your sons to be as strong as their father. We will do whatever you ask of us. I swear that oath to you now and always. Angron stood still for a moment. He looked upon Kharn. He lifted his hands to caress the dread-like tendrils on his butcher's nails. His greatest curse. His greatest weapon. Of course, these sons weren't strong enough. They had no nails. Failure, said Angron, his snarl reverberating across the flagship's hold, where the entirety of the Legion had assembled. 31 hours Angron had given his Legion. 31 hours to conquer the world of Gehenna. And all knew the price for failure. Decimation. 1 in every 10 will be slaughtered by his brothers, and the weakness would be expunged. 9315, or Gehenna, had gone dark from Imperial communication for nearly a decade, only for the 12th Legion to return, and to find its compliance in failure. Its population's dark truth had been revealed, a hive mind of false humanity. Millions of humanoids that spoke with one conscience. Their bodies mass-produced vat-grown pseudo-humans, whose blood was tinged with an amber hue. The 31 hours was given by the Lord of the Red Sands, and in formations of phalanxes, with chain axes and blades, the World Eaters had marched towards a population that bore no weapons, only a tide of bodies that spoke in one eerie voice, that began to swarm and then drown them. White and blue armor stood out like islands and rivers of bodies. The push towards the inner capital halted, until the alarm rang, and their 31 hours were up. When I give orders to unleash you, everything must die, Angron snarled. Men, women, old, sick and dogs, everything. Total extermination, and nothing less. My eaters of worlds, tens of thousands of them cannot conquer a single world. Truly pathetic. Angron turned, grasping his head as the nails began to sting with his rising fury. Oh, my brothers and sisters, what would you have said to that? You, who fought your way out of bondage with me, out of the caves to wreak our vengeance. Tick, tick, tick. The nails began to bite. Since Angron's return to the Legion, apothecaries had attempted to recreate the butcher's nails. The greatest emulation of their father. The search for his strength. The desire to suffer as he did, so that something would bond them together. All the attempts to implement the Legion's copies ended in violent death. A raving madman with no sane thought except violence. Angron began to pace. Warriors with the nails breathing hot smoke in their skulls would not have failed me. they would have had the strength to endure, the will, without restraint or any thought given to honor or survival, without the fear of death. That is the only destiny any of you will ever know. His family, his eaters of cities had survived the nails, yet these so-called warriors of the Emperor could not. How could his so-called sons be so weak? Decimation. Angron finally rasped. Draw lots or make examples. But 1 in 10 is the price that must be paid. Like a wave, the command reverberated through the World Eaters. Warriors for over a century who had jealously awaited the one they would call father, whilst others conquered with their Primarchs. And yet when that day had come, and the decades of moulding themselves to his design, they were still not enough. No, said a singular voice. All turned in stunned silence towards the Terran veteran Captain Mago. Tick, tick, tick. The nails bit even harder. Angron rounded on Captain Mago, looming over him with barely contained rage as he whispered, "No." His voice dangerous. Captain Mago's face rose slowly, and with great effort met the eyes of the towering monster. Our blades are soaked in the blood of brothers, our own kin, for no reason other than to slake your wrath. Because you failed, Angron growled. We did not fail, Mago roared, knowing his life was over no matter what came next. The flag of the Imperium has been raised over countless worlds by our hands, our blood. We fought as brothers, and thousands of us have fallen in honor of that duty. No more shall die in shame. Their blood on our hands. No more. No more. The silence was deafening, until Angron stood to his full height. He cast his head back, and his laughter boomed across the deck. It unnerved the World Eaters more than his rage. Finally, at least one of you has the spine to speak your thoughts. That is why I will let you pick. Father, Mago pleaded. Choose now, said Angron. His face snapped into a cold stare, his eyes twitching. Or I will choose for you. This legion is your legion, Mago pushed. Its warriors carry your blood in their veins. I will not see their lives squandered any further. Enough have died already today. I am asking you, my Primarch, my father, do not do this. Careful, Captain, said Kharn, his voice a cold warning ignored. You will choose, Angron said through clenched teeth. Kharn could see Mago's jaw tighten, until finally he spoke. No, no more, father. Tick, tick, tick. Crack. Angron grabbed his skull and began to claw at it. One of the nail connections snapped taut, and in a burst of sparks, severed loose. Angron wasn't on the Conqueror anymore. He was a wild beast, as unbearable pain shot through him and contorted his body. Then he leapt, smashing into his legion. World Eaters scrambled, as several burst apart, breaking his fall. The Red Angel lashed out and began to kill, as his mind swam in molten rage. Move! Get clear! A voice shouted, as limbs were sent careening over the scrambling thousands. Marines were cleaved apart by chain axes, torsos ripped from legs with his bare hands, as blood leaked from Angron's nose. Then he fell to the floor. He felt the Psyker's sting push even more pain through the nails. As a projection of the Legion's Librarius, the Communion formed in his mind. We are the Communion, and you are our father, they said in one voice. You must cease this, Angron. Your rage is killing your sons. They are not my sons, Angron wailed, clutching his head. They are weaklings forced upon me. The only family I've ever had lies dead when I was stolen from them. The projection pushed even further into the core of his being. and like a physical blow, it spoke one last time. You must stop. Angron's world went dark. Nuceria, the mountains cold on his bare feet, the whipping shrieks haunting him, the taste of fear, the spill of wet blood on his face, the shocks and tranquilizers from the first humans he had ever seen, the red sands, the overwhelming emotions of others, his first kill that doesn't hurt him, Onomaeus' hand on his shoulder, his family's pain on his shoulders as they sleep, the awakening to the nails grafted into his brain, the howls of pain, as Onomaeus' blood still stains his hands, the rise of rebellion, the slaughter of the High Riders, the eaters of cities by his side as Nuceria burns, the cold of the mountain again, the last supper on his blood, a last gathering of family before a glorious death, a High Rider dead in his hands. Then a voice that makes his mind scream, a new slavery, and a glorious death denied. A bestial roar that comes from a human throat awakens Angron. The Red Angel rises and walks towards its source. Angron stares at Kharn, kneeling over a body little more than piles of flesh. An apothecarian table is behind him, along with the broken strand of the butcher's nails from Angron's own scalp. Kharn looks up to his father. Speckles of blood spit escape from a mouth contorted in hate. Blood leaks from the butcher's nails now in his scalp. "Do you see now?" asked Angron, running a blunt fingertip across the silver cables of Kharn's implants. Kharn twitches. "Do you see?" With a soft crackle of bloody froth, Kharn's jaw unclenched. Bits of broken teeth spilled from lips to scatter across the deck. Not all of them his own. "Yes," Kharn wheezes. Angron stands to his full height. He looked down at Kharn and smiled. He saw. He knew the pain, the rage, the bites and the ticks that demand every ounce of restraint not to unleash. Almost gently, Angron lifted Kharn to his feet. "Come with me, my son." "This is how it should have been, Kharn," said Angron. "Now this legion's history can truly begin." Angron, Kharn, and 80 of the 8th Assault Company, Butcher's nails implants still fresh, jump from their Stormbird onto the sands of Gehenna. Like a wolf leading his pack, Angron and his world eaters smashed into the approaching horde of Gehennan civilians. In one voice they droned on for negotiation, as Primarch's sons ploughed through them. They were a blender of flesh, and soaked the ground and themselves in amber blood. In tandem, a second group rushed towards the capital. Captain Mago and his conspiracists made their rush, to destroy the doom of their legion. The Cold War between the veteran warhounds had been thwarted, and the secret missions to destroy the Butcher's nail prototypes had failed. Now the secrets for mass production of the nails were discovered to be held by the Gehennans, and if Angron were to find it first, the Legion would be changed forever. Gone was the phalanx of before, as Angron, Kharn and their pack had punched through a tide of bodies sent their way. Thousands, hundreds of thousands were left in their wake, as no obstacle lived before them. Kharn cackled beside Angron, for now he saw the truth, the power of the nails. "Let us finish this," Angron grunted, as they descended into the depths of the central citadel. Finally at the heart of the enemy's holding, they saw the truth. Banks of crystal pods lined the walls, in a cold-blued honeycomb that stretched 100 meters high. 1,000 of them. The true Gehennans. Ravaged bodies floating in amniotic fluid. The true minds behind the false population upon the surface. Angron spat in disgust, for there were no warriors amongst this weakness. 2 lines of warriors stood opposing each other. One in marble plate, the banners of the Legion's victories flapping in the wind, and Captain Mago at its front, with the old Legion Master Lorg behind him, in his dreadnought chassis, roused by the veteran at this time of crisis. Opposite Angron stood, Kharn and his brethren flanking them, covered in black soot and stained in amber blood. "My Primarch," bellowed Mago, "in the name of the 12th Legion and the Emperor of Mankind, I demand that you submit yourself to our custody, and travel with us to Terra to stand judgment for the crime of the Butcher's Nails." Angron laughed, a bitter, sneering laugh. "Crime?" He spat onto the ground. "You sow a rebellion and accuse me of crime. Savor the taste of the air, Centurion, on the last night of your life, before I rip you limb from limb." Mago looked to his once friend, his brother Kharn. The divide had been cemented. Where one saw madness, the other ascension and opportunity. A chance for strength, for Primarch and Legion to be whole. The implanted nails began to bite, and Angron's side lunged at their brothers. World Eater killed World Eater in the ashes of a civilization. But discipline was no match for feral fury, as the implanted Marines hacked their brethren apart, ripping off their heads and tearing into flesh with their teeth. To the feet of the rebellious, Kharn tossed the head of Mago, bringing the violence to an end. Angron stood before them, as Lork and the others bowed their head in loyalty. The implementation took 8 days, until all but the Librarius bore the Butcher's Nails. The Eaters of Worlds ascended once more to Gehenna, raising every city and leaving none alive. Angron stood beside his twitching horde of sons, and made his silent vow. "I will go to the stars, and spill blood and take skulls, and I will leave the Emperor exactly what he left for me. Nothing but a graveyard, an endless field of bones, stabbing out from the salted earth." It is the 31st millennium. For 2 centuries the Great Crusade has set out from Terra to the stars, bringing world upon world into compliance. Hundreds of thousands of worlds bend the knee to enlightenment, to reason and unity under one being, the most powerful psyker in the galaxy, the Emperor of Mankind. With reluctance, Angron stares upon the creature that he calls Father, as he and his legion stand in salute in the greatest triumph of the species. The flattened continent of Ullanor bears witness to millions of Imperial army. Astartes are near a dozen Primarchs. Magnus the Red, Fulgrim, Mortarion, Lorgar, Jagatai Khan, Rogel Dawn, Sanguinius and Angron bear witness, as the Master of Mankind gives his decree, that today they celebrate the might of the Imperium, but that the Emperor's grand vision will be led by another, as he returns to Terra to complete an even more important goal. With a laurel wreath placed upon his brow, Horus Lupercal was declared the Emperor's War Master, a general who will lead his armies in the closing days of the Great Crusade. A War Master, Angron thought. Of course. A tyrant delegating the fighting to others, as they return to the wealth beyond imagining. Angron had no dislike of Horus, perhaps even respect, but to take orders from an equal, to be the hound on another's leash made the nails tick. "Did he send you?" Angron growled. The gladiator incarnate, a god of war, stared across the chasm, to one who called himself brother. Leman Russ, the Wolf King, a ferocity tamed. The dust blew between the 2 legions that stared at each other, the tension thick and violence seeming inevitable. Disappointment. The proclamation had come. Displeasure from the Emperor of Mankind over the implementation of the Butcher's Nails. "Did he send you?" the Eater of Worlds asked. But Russ said nothing. His silence had Angron smiling, though it was an ugly slice of a thing, showing no joy. "He didn't, did he? The Emperor and Horus sail the stars together without a care for any of this." You've come to punish me because you believe it is your place. The reputation was earned. The Emperor's executioners. It should have been them called hounds. Hounds were loyal to their master's leash. This was why they were the Eaters of Worlds, and the Warhounds no longer. Reports reach my ears, Angron. Russ finally spoke. The words of commanders and captains who have suffered at your side. Soldiers forced to fight without orders. Losing hundreds where mere dozens needed to die. Your own allies speak of the butchery done to them at your son's hands. Report after report, after report. Witness after witness. All of this comes to me. And I wonder, my brother, what am I to do? Russ made a show at turning his head side to side. Look at what you have done. Is this the deed you want listed beneath your name, when statues rise to celebrate the Great Crusade? Angron's eye began to twitch. The implant surgery must be reversed. Your sons will submit to mine for a return to Terra. Once we reach the palace, everything will be done to remove these parasitic engines from your men's minds. Who was Russ to speak to him like this, an equal giving orders? How many civilizations had the wolves burned before Angron had even known of the Imperium? How many years had the Emperor turned a blind eye to his slaughter, only for the tallies of compliances to become inconvenient? Russ began to speak again, quoting the philosophy of Lorgar, speaking of the battle for morality and noble deeds. Such pretty lies. We fight for the same reasons men have always fought. For land, resources, for wealth and for bodies to feed into the grinders of industry. We fight to silence anyone that dares draw a breath and a whisper of a different opinion than ours. We fight because the Emperor wants every world in his hands. All he knows is slavery, painted in the inoffensive cloak of compliance. The very notion of freedom is a horror to him. Traitor, said Russ. The warmth in his voice turned to a cold warning. We offer compliance or we offer death. How am I a traitor, wolfling? I fight as you fight. As loyal as you are, I do the tyrant's bidding. We offer them freedom. It is slavery, Angron bit back. Russ spoke through clenched teeth. You are mutilating your sons, and stealing their minds, and now you preach of the Emperor's tyranny. Are you lost so far in your delusions? I do these things, and I enjoy them. Angron indicated around himself. All I feel are the butcher's nails hammered into my brain. I serve because of this mutilation. Without it, well, perhaps I might be a more moral man, like you claim to be. A virtuous man, eh? Perhaps I might ascend the steps of our father's palace and take the slaving bastard's head. In all the years after, none remembered who fired the first shot. 2 stories left the killing field, along with dozens of dead on both sides. Angron claimed victory, having bested Russ in personal combat, as his sons died around him. Yet no deathstroke came between Primarch, only a warning delivered, and a warning ignored. The true chastisement had come, as the fleets of the once lunar wolves, now sons of Horus, tore their way out of the warp before the 12th Legion. War Master Horus Lupercal had come on the official dispatch of the Emperor of Mankind, to bring Angron back into heel. The towering bronze giant hunched forward, his posture ready for a repeat of the dubbed Night of the Wolf, until Horus began to speak. The Emperor is a tyrant. He is a liar, Angron. He has lied about the warp and the powers that rule there. He plans to murder a portion of his own sons, as he ascends to godhood. All we have fought for will be sacrificed in the altar of his ambition. Help me, brother. Let us unshackle ourselves from this tyrant." It was as if every word was crafted for Angron. It confirmed a dark truth that Angron felt in his black soul. The father who had tossed his infant sons across the galaxy, and him into the chains of the High Riders. It was he who denied him his glorious death, besides his family. It was him who abandoned that family, where other brothers had theirs saved and elevated. This chaos Horus spoke of rose no interest in Angron. For all warcraft was cowardly and unclean. But lines were being drawn up, and soon the Imperium would be plunged into internal strife. Angron pledged his legion to the War Master, and prepared for the galaxy to burn. Angron's face was murder itself, his thick features scarred and bloody. Dark iron glinted on his scalp where the nails began to sing. The Red Angel, alongside elements of the World Eater's 16th Company, and Sons of Horus' 10th Company prepared to crest the hill of the enemy's last citadel. Through heavy-lidded eyes, Angron caught a glance at Captain Loken and Tarik Torgadon of the Sons of Horus. He saw them shiver at the sight of him. All men did. He knew how the other legions, even the other Primarchs, saw him, but he did not care. All that was left to him was slaughter. His honor had been ripped from him decades ago. He was simply a ghost of New Syria. Initial encounters with the Oretian technocracy had been favorable with Horus. Compliance could have been welcomed as lost colonies of mankind unifying, but their fate was sealed before the first footfall. The World Eaters were following suit, using the guise of war to begin purging their ranks. The Remembrances, part of the Imperial Army, and civilian elements would not follow the path of rebellion. The reluctant Oretians were, in Horus's words, illuminated as to the error of their ways. As the last citadel fell, they sought to take a Primarch with them, detonating the fortress and burying Angron under a mountain of rubble. Yet through stone and World Eater bodies, Angron clawed his way free. Caked in blood, he roared in hate. The nails biting so deep, he killed all in his vicinity. To the world of Isfahan III, the World Eaters, Sons of Horus, Emperor's Children and Death Guard assembled their fleets. The world had risen in rebellion, slaughtering their imperial governors and decrying death to the Emperor. In formations unfamiliar to them, tens of thousands of World Eaters drop-podded down into the capital, the Coral City, fighting an army wielding silver halberds, firing piercing bolts, decked in lucrative stained glass armor. The force of the four legions slammed against the last bastion of the traitor, Varda's Prahl. It was as if the whole world had gone mad, as towards the World Eater lines, the entire civilian population charged, utterly fearless. Captain Ernan ordered his warriors to holster their bolters and draw chainswords and axes. From the command deck of the Conqueror, Angron sat hunched in his command throne. The precipice had come, as from the holds of the Astartes fleet, the payload that would break the galaxy descended. Virus bombs, the strongest weapon in the Imperium's arsenal, detonated upon the surface of Isfahan III. From the ocean to the vast continents, to the cities dotted across its surface, all life was devoured. The civilian and military population, to the Astartes caught in its wave, let out horrifying screams, and then it bloomed in fire, as Isfahan III was as silent as the dead. Movement alerts sounded across the deck. Survivors, emerging from deep bunkers. A lone figure in the purple of the Emperor's Children, surrounded by the white of the World Eaters. Other signals came alive. Sons of Horus, Death Guard. The Vox bloomed with calls to bombard the surface. But Angron had already left, and the rage-filled calls from Horus were left unanswered. To the surface of Isfahan III, Angron rocketed down as his World Eaters followed behind. Raking fire punched through the rubble as loyalist World Eaters darted into cover, the dark truth finally dawning upon them. Angron had remembered their names, their faces, He found those within his legion too weak to follow the new path, and now he would kill them all with his bare hands. With a roar like a feral animal, Angron leapt from the gunship and landed with a terrible crash. He was a monster of legend, huge and terrible, and the Primarch's hideous face was twisted in hatred. His huge chain axes battered and stained with decades of bloodshed. As the mighty Primarch landed, World Eaters dropped from their own gunships. Thousands of World Eaters whose war cries echoed Angron's own bestial howl, as they charged their former brethren. Bodies were sent tumbling, as those loyal to the Emperor countercharged. Bolter fire and chain axes smashed into the cacophony of hatred. One born of betrayal, the other disgust. Brother killed brother. Father killed sons in a chorus of singing nails. Over months, through guerrilla warfare, the Loyalists began to bleed the traitors. Yet each conflict whittled their numbers until only a few thousand remained. Ambush after ambush Angron walked into, careless to his and his men's lives. The Coral City became choked with blood, as after another victory, Angron strode over to a wounded Loyalist. Calgar's bolter was smashed aside by Angron, yet the Primarch did not deliver the final blow. Angron smiled at the man's beautiful defiance. "Lord," the dying centurion speaks. Angron crouched by his son, ignoring the nosebleed trickling down his lips, as the butcher's nails tick, tick, tick in the back of his brain. "I am here, Kharn," Angron almost whispers. Kharn coughs up blood. He knows he will draw his final breath soon. He looks to the father that has betrayed him, with his last functioning eye. "That wound at your throat," Kharn coughed out. "That was me." Angron touched his own neck. His fingers came away wet, and he smiled for the first time in years. "You fought well," said Angron. "All of you did." "Not well enough." The centurion bares blood-darkened teeth into a rictus grin. "Tell me, why, father? Why stand with the arch-traitor?" "I do not stand with Horus." Angron breathes the confession. "I stand against the Emperor. Do you understand, Kharn? I am free now. Free. Can you not understand that? Why have you all spent these last decades telling me I should feel honored to live as a slave, when I was so close to dying free?" Kharn let out his final breath. Angron stands. He hears his warriors chant his title, Lord of the Red Sands, as the last of the Loyalists are surrounded and annihilated. Angron was free of the Emperor, but true freedom would only come when he struck that tyrant's head from his shoulders. The Great Crusade is over. With the decimation upon Isfahan III, the War Master Horus Lupercal declared open rebellion. In alliance with this chaos, warp storms ravage the galaxy. Entire sectors and worlds are cut off. Planets pick a side, choosing either to acquiesce to the War Master, whilst others remain loyal to the Emperor at their own peril. To the world of Isfahan V, the World Eaters, sons of Horus, Death Guard and Emperor's children, as well as elements of Traitorous Guard and Mechanicum, assemble in the bastion upon the Urgal Depression. From Terra the Emperor has sent his vengeance. The Iron Hands, Raven Guard and Salamanders as the vanguard. The Iron Warriors, Night Lords, Word-Bearers and Alpha Legion in the rear. Vast armies clash upon the snowy fields, in catastrophic violence so great it would destroy the sanity of mortal minds. From the front lines, Angron and his sons countercharge Salamander Line, as one's allies spill each other's blood, in a war most never thought possible. The feral howls of Angron bellowed in challenge to his brother Vulcan. The prospect of challenging one worthy of his axe is an enticing thought. Bloodied, the first wave of loyalists began to retreat, all except Ferrus Manus in his desperate charge towards Fulcrum. The Salamanders and Raven Guards signaled to the Iron Warriors, Night Lords, Word-Bearers and Alpha Legion, only to be met with eerie silence. Ordnance and bolter fire raked into the Loyalists, as 4 more legions turned upon the Emperor. Angron and the World Eaters charged, turning the next weeks into a massacre that shattered 3 legions, and 3 Primarchs missing or dead. From a great pyre, Angron watched Horus stand elevated before the traitor host. The War Master declared their great victory and raised up their new chant, "Death to the false Emperor." But to their side, Angron could not help but notice the change already coming. This chaos. These gods which were openly worshipped within the ranks of the Word-Bearers, Emperor's children and sons of Horus, and the Emperor's lie, that demons now walked amongst them. Ultramar, the realm of Primarch Rabuta Guilliman. 500 worlds, a prosperous upbringing, vast armies, and a family. A life of ease compared to the red sands of Nuceria. When over a century before, when the Emperor stole Angron from his glorious end, Nuceria bowed to compliance, the High Riders joining the prosperous realm of Ultramar as reward. And now it would all burn. The Conqueror tore from the warp, as the first lancing beam struck the world of Armatura. If Macragge was the administrative capital, Armatura was the arsenal of the Ultramarines. Vast docks had given birth to numerous fleets in the 13th Legion. Upon its surface, veterans of hundreds of campaigns schooled thousands of new recruits. Its continents gave way to vast armies of militia that guarded fortresses that would give the Iron Warriors pause. Yet Angron and his World Eaters, followed by Lorgar and his Word-Bearers, appeared, with only a fraction of their legion's strength. The rest spread out across Ultramar, leaving dead worlds in their wake. The Ultramarines' legion had been decimated in the ambush upon Calth, the slaughter giving birth to the violent warp storms that sealed the realm from the Emperor's light. 2 warriors stood side by side, one stained in marble plate, his butcher's nail implant stinging through his nervous system, the other in crimson, with cracked lines scarring the path where demon flesh bubbled up. 8th Captain Kharn and Argol Tal, Lord of the Chapter of the Consecrated Iron, leader of the demon-possessed Vakrajal. They were a brotherhood born of the Great Crusade, cemented in the fighting pits shared by each other's legions since the heresy's dawn, and that bond was now tested. The World Eaters were twitching in their harnesses, as the Word-Bearers in dark prayer fell silent. With feral footsteps, the Lord of the Red Sands entered. From the bridge, Angron had seen not 1, but 2 enormous Word-Bearer vessels tear themselves out of the warp. Continent-sized cathedrals of metal and firepower, the true weapon to break this precious world of Guilliman. But he wanted to be upon Armatura's surface, before there was no more hot blood left to spill. Angron turned to regard the Word-Bearers in their orderly ranks, and a nasty smile split his lips. He sensed their ardency, their efforts at propriety, and it amused him. "You're smiling," Kharn said, wearily. "It entertains me no end to see them masking their sickness inside their souls with such zeal," said Angron. "Lorgar has been planning this war for decades. The mere sight of those ships is evident of that. Remember it, all of you. Remember it when you feel tempted to trust one of those serpents in red." Angron's pupils were pinprick specks in the depths of his sickly eyes. A stalactite of saliva trickled its way down his scarred chin. Kharn merely inclined his head in acknowledgement of his lord's words. "Creature," Angron growled. "Creature, get over here." Angron had grown fond of toying with Argol Tal in such a way, seeing how the man with a demon in his chest wrestled to keep in check his hate. "I saw your lord's pretty warships lighting up the skies just now. The Trisaragon and the Blessed Lady." Argol Tal stiffened. It had been mere months since his mortal friend had been slain by the Emperor's custodies. A deep wound Angron felt like picking at. "The Blessed Lady," Angron growled. "That name. She was your whore priestess, was she not?" "She was our confessor." Angron felt Argyll Tal's hate radiating off of him, and his grin grew wide. "Dead though, eh? Entombed upon Lorgar's flagship. Is it true that fanatics pulled her bone from the coffin? They stole them as holy relics, like the heathens of old?" "Angron," Kharn pleaded. With a sword stolen from the Emperor's own custodians, Argyll Tal leapt at Angron, but the Primarch caught the word-bearer in one fist, his fingers wrapping around the warrior's torso. It was over in a heartbeat, as Argyll Tal was hurled back before the blade could even come close to landing. The word-bearer rose as his armor began to crack. Leathery wings unfurled from behind, as hybrid demon and human flesh burst from the seals. "See you on the surface," Angron chuckled to himself, turning his back on the creature and climbing within a Dreadclaw drop pod alone. "He is no Primarch," Argyll Tal's voice rammed into Kharn's mind, sending hot stabbing through it. "A Primarch should be inspiring. Our genetics should react at the mere sight of them. Think of the moment you laid eyes on Horus, Dawn, or Magnus. I've seen Sanguinius and Russ with my own eyes as well, close enough to touch their armor. Think of when you stand before Lorgar, the awe and reverence that beats through your blood, the feeling of our genetic code reacting to the pinnacle of human process. I've never felt that instinctive respect for Angron, Kharn. Not once. He is a broken thing. Devastating, unrivaled in war, but broken." Kharn dared not voice aloud the dark truth. That yes, he and all World Eaters knew this to be true. Dreadclaw drop pods slammed into the marble cities of Armatura. Hordes of World Eaters and Wordbearers poured out as their slaughter began. Unlike his philosophically minded brother, the Lord of the Red Sands ploughed into the heat of the blood-soaked carnage. Reports of the Void War and tactical situation from Mistress of the Conqueror, Latara's sin had to be brief, before the nails took hold. Latara had sensed it, a dark truth that Kharn and the others fought against openly acknowledging. Angron was getting worse. The fever rage of the nails came on sooner, each time they had burned a world within Ultramar. Trickles of blood poured from the Primarch's nose each time he spoke. Sometimes he had to be locked within his own chambers, lest a rampage spill out onto the mortal crew again. Like splayed fingers curling into a fist, the World Eaters and Wordbearers converged towards the Naval Academy's command tower. Disciplined lines of mortal army and ultramarines slunk back in ordered retreat, as Kharn witnessed Angron charge in alone. The nails had taken over. Detonating booms rocketed out from the base levels of the tower, and Kharn witnessed in horror as Angron was buried under a mountain of rubble. Darkness. True, utter black. Whiplashing clarity cut through the mind-numbing rage that had consumed Angron. He was buried, utterly alone. It was then that the instinct kicked in, and with hands and arms red raw from blood, he began to swing and claw, each gathering of dirt and stone slicing his flesh, until he was a mix of blood and dirt. He was a Primarch. He could hold his breath for a long time, but for all his superhuman traits, panic began to set in. Howls escaped his mind. The butcher's nails began to sear hot with heat, and the ticks whined into a solid buzz. He had to kill. He had to kill. His mind tumbled. He wasn't weak. He wasn't scared. He wasn't helpless. Kill! He choked out the words, gagging on a mouthful of rock. Kill, maim, burn! Angron, a firm voice thundered into his skull. Who are you? Angron hissed. We are the last 19 still alive. The voice spoke again. I am the Communion, the only one who can reach you. For the first time in centuries, Angron felt a calm wash over him. I am counteracting the machine in your skull by altering the chemicals flowing through your brain, the voice continued. I cannot maintain it for long, not with only 19 of us left. Your mind is too different from baseline humanity. It resists any interference. Free me, Angron demanded. You have to free yourself. You're digging downwards. The enemy mined the roads and collapsed the towers upon the vanguard of our army. You were over 30 meters beneath the ground when you woke. Now you're closer to 200. Angron felt the Communion point him in the direction toward the surface. The sting of the nails began to return, as Angron felt the Communion of 12th Legion Psychers falter. No doubt a handful already dead due to the effort. Swinging with demigod strength, Angron clawed his way up meter by meter of packed earth, his lungs burning as finally he punched through to sunlight. The Lord of the Red Sands took in a sweet breath and roared. His form blood-caked and ruined, Angron peered down into the crater around him, witnessing the near-melted and charred form of his brother Lorgar. The word-bearer lifted a scalded hand, not for aid, but in warning. Angron had no time to lift his mutilated brother, sprawled at his feet, because the sun went dark. Angron spread his arms, catching the gigantic tread of a warhound titan. Every muscle in his body locked tighter than the iron trying to crush him. Drool streamed through his metal teeth, skinned knuckles white as he defied the will of a titan. He gave a bestial roar as the foot lowered another half-meter. Sinews cracked in his shoulders. His broken boots skidded back onto the patch of unglassed rock. Something cracked in his spine. Something else cracked in his left knee. The compression of his bones sounded like twigs breaking underfoot, but he could hear his men cheering. He could hear them howling as they killed, and crying his name. He blinked to clear away the sweat-greasy sting, and dug his boots into the ground. And with a smile splitting across his broken angel face, he shifted his slipping, blood-slick grip on the Titan's clawed foot, and started pushing back. Lorgar! Angron spoke in something that wasn't quite a growl, and wasn't quite a laugh. Get up! I can't hold this forever! Lorgar rose a trembling hand, and added his psychic might. The two brothers pushed together, as a plasma cannon the size of a tower crackled with heat. Angron could see that Lorgar had somehow survived 2 shots, but they would both not survive a third. Spear lances punched through the side of the Imperial Warhound Titan. World Eater Wardog contracts had taken on much from their master, and they had become hunters. And like wolves, the lesser machines lanced and dragged down the larger beast, lifting its tread from the Primarchs and slamming it into the rubble. Angron rose, bloody but still standing. The 2 Primarchs gripped wrists, as Angron pulled Lorgar to his feet. Apothecaries from both legions were sprinting into the crater. Are you dying? Angron barked. You look like you are. From a face and body half melted, with only his functioning eye left, Lorgar met his brother's gaze, and smiled a twisted half grin, the bone of his skull peeking in places. I sought to save you, to unearth you from that burial, Lorgar wheezed out. Angron froze. He felt something that frightened him more than having been buried alive. The sensation of brotherhood. Is that a lie? Angron asked. You tried to dig me out? You know it's the truth, said Lorgar. Both Word-Bearers and World-Eaters finally rushing to their Primarch's side, all staring in awe. You weren't needed, Angron said hastily, running away from the sensation he had once felt before and lost. Lorgar turned away. Be that as it may, I thank you, brother. Thank you for stopping the Titan. As the Urizen limped away, aided by his sons, Angron called out, Lorgar, try not to die before I return. Lorgar gave a mutilated smile and entered into his Thunderhawk. Angron turned away, seeking new weapons to continue his slaughter. Sire, said Kharn, rising to his Primarch's side. Leave me, Kharn. Prattle at me later, when the nails no longer sing. No, said Kharn defiantly. Every World Eater around them froze. Angron stood still, and turned slowly to face down Kharn. You have something to say, Captain? To his credit, Angron thought, Kharn did not back down. Lord Aurelian tore rocks from the ground for almost half an hour to reach you, and slaughtered countless enemy warriors. Angron showed his shark's row of iron teeth. And you owe him thanks. His act was noble, despite his legion's eternal cowardice, and he endured great horror to save you. I have never seen a warrior withstand such punishment, nor pull gunshots from the sky by spite alone. This ingratitude is beneath you, sire. You are better than this. Around Kharn, the World Eaters prepared for the violence they knew was coming. Yet to their surprise, Angron simply stared at the 8th Captain. A mirthless chuckle escaped Angron. I'll bear that in mind, Kharn, he said, as he departed the stunned World Eaters. Armatura's foothold had been established, and even with Lorgar's mighty flotilla bombarding the Ultramarines' defences, the battle was far from won. Lacerated by 100 wounds, Angron stood victorious over the dead, as the last of Armatura's defences fell. According to Lorgar, it was not the conquering of the planets, but the slow death, the agony and suffering that changed this so-called Song of Chaos. One born from the decimation by Erebus and Corpheron on Calth, and soon joined by Angron and Lorgar's Shadow Crusade. The World Eaters slaughtered any left alive, coating the streets of this once jewel in blood. The Word-Bearers dragged away any Ultramarines they could find, resources for dark rituals for their dark gods. The bridge of the Conqueror was stained in blood, and Angron's trembling footsteps were matched with one equal in his size. Former Legion Master Lork and his Contemptor Dreadnought chassis had dispatched the last of the Ultramarine boarders. The World Eaters responsible for the naval ship's defense had run down to the surface in glory, and their punishment would soon come. Angron of the World Eaters, Lork's grill barked. You look good, old warrior. Still in the outdated colours, eh? Angron growled. Do I owe you thanks for defending my ship? I did little. Your gratitude should go to the other first dreadnoughts, and the 2,071 souls that lost their lives in repelling the assault. Tick, tick, tick. The nails began to bite again. You're still a miserable bastard, Lork. I died. A little too late to change now, the former Legion Master said, as from the viewports the World Eaters and Word-Bearers' bombardment finally cleansed the planet. Angron, Kharn and Argel Tal chuckled. Within Lorgar's personal chambers, the self-described Destiny's Hand had arrived. Erebus, High Chaplain of the Word-Bearers, servant of chaos long before even Lorgar's corruption, stood in failure. Calth had burned. Hundreds of thousands of Ultramarines lay dead. Ammunition for the ruin storm had carved the Imperium in two. Yet even with this perfect ambush, he and Corpheron had failed to kill Guilliman, and failed to utterly destroy the 13th Legion. And once the vengeance of the survivors had come, they had turned tail. Angron enjoyed Lorgar's toying with the snake that was Erebus, and yet Erebus would fail again. His demonic ambush for the Blood Angels and Primarch Sanguinius would fail. Angron could not hide his fascination at Lorgar's words, that even the perfect angel, Lord Sanguinius, was rife with insecurity. The thought that even brothers who seemingly had everything still fought an internal war was new to Angron. Angron laughed again at Erebus's utterly defeated and kowtowed expression. "The timing of your arrival was fortuitous, priest," Angron grumbled. "Just in time to miss the fighting. Tell me, are all your prayers and little treacheries making you more preacher than warrior?" Erebus departed, the sounds of Angron's chuckles echoing throughout the hold. Aboard Lorgar's flagship, Angron dwelt, the two legions' fleet once more translating into the warped tides. 27 worlds, 27 civilizations Angron and Lorgar had burned. But this time the Horizon had kept his brother in the dark as to their next destination. "What brings you here, brother?" Lorgar asked, his eyes closed. The priest earned his title, for unlike Angron, who never shed his bronze plate, Aurelian sat in his command throne in simple robes of crimson. "Curiosity," said Angron, surprising his brother. "I've followed you so far. We've killed the worlds you wish to kill, and now you owe me an answer or two." Lorgar smiled and rose. With psychic power he drew a star chart of Ultramar, tracing the building shadows that leapt from world to world, now ashes, all leading to a sight that made Angron's rage almost melt. "New Syria," Angron whispered, the mix of disbelief, pain and rage leaving him rigid. "I have no wish to return there, Lorgar. No wish and no need." Lorgar completed the ring of worlds that would seal Ultramar from terror. "Why New Syria?" Angron balked. "You could choose any world near Ultramar's borders to form the end of this barricade. But you chose New Syria." "It must be New Syria," Lorgar said silently. Angron didn't believe him. The brotherhood Angron felt and resisted growing manifested, as he felt the familiar sting of betrayal in his heart. "Not good enough," Angron barked. "Why are you so reluctant to return?" Lorgar asked. "Do not reduce me in your mind to a snarling inhuman thing, forever blinded by its own anger." Lorgar could sense the closest thing to fear Angron could feel. Because in the stars he was a butcher, a weapon, but on New Syria he had been a man. In the stars he could escape the pain, but on that world, after everything they had done to him, Angron tried desperately to hide the very truth he knew Lorgar was searching for, that he was no mad beast. He was a man, a broken man in pain so deep. He hurt the universe that hurt him, but Lorgar had seen it. Angron's butcher's nails were different. Your sons, with their crude copies of your implants, have their minds rewritten to feel joy only in the adrenaline's kiss. Those lesser implants cause pain because they scrape the nerves raw. Thus your world eaters kill because it gladdens their reforged hearts. But you, for you there is no true joy. It is escape. In its deepest sting they give you a serenity and peace you can find nowhere else. "Why New Syria?" Angron interjected, trying desperately to change the subject. "Because you are dying," said Lorgar. "Those nails are killing you, and at New Syria there is a chance I can save you." Angron was stunned. Stunned that someone considered his life worth saving, even if he wanted it to end. "You are weak," said Angron dismissively. He paced the room, unfooted. "I am weak," said Lorgar, his voice calm yet his golden eyes defiant. "Am I the only Primarch to never conquer his homeworld? The one who suffered the Night of the Wolf? Beaten bloody by Russ in the rain?" "I had him! I had Russ at my mercy," Angron growled. "Then tell me the truth of that night," Lorgar retorted.
"I had him, Lorgar. My boot on his throat at the very end. I stood above him at last. And Russ..."
"Do you see?"
he said. No, he barked it. He barked this not like a simple beast, but with human passion backed by canine fury. Conviction burning in his eyes. The same instinctive viciousness of a dog defending its family.
"Look, damn you. Look around you. Do you see what you've done to your sons?"
At the battle's core, senses pierced Angron's aching sight long enough to leave him speechless. The axe in his hand lowered, and he looked out at the ranks of wolves facing him with their bolters raised. They came in ragged packs, abandoning the warfare to form a ring around the Primarchs. Wolf after wolf, close enough for Angron to make out the individual totems and talismans, rattling against their storm grey armour, moving to stand in ragged ranks with their brothers. One of them, a tribal leader of some kind, stood out by elaborate blue pack markings over his faceplate.
"It's over, Lord Angron."
"Russ!"
Angron turned to his brother and pointed with one bloody hand over the encircling wolf packs, to where the Legion still fought across the rest of the battlefield.
"Your Legion is bleeding."
Russ didn't deny it, for it was true. Beyond the encircling Primarchs, the World Eaters were tearing through their cousin grade regiments, fighting without sign of formation, just as they fought without any regard for their Primarch. Even in those early days, they were used to Angron fighting alone, and their fresh implant stole any hope of cohesive battle planning. Their stunted brains wouldn't let them bring order to their chaos. The few World Eaters in possession of their senses, Lorg's towering iron form was one, Angron noted through narrowed eyes, were throwing themselves at the wolves entrenched around the dueling Primarchs, but they lacked the numbers to break through Russ's defensive packs.
"My men are dying, yet here we stand at the battle's heart, and only one legion is about to lose its Primarch. Do you see why I came? Do you see how you've broken your sons?"
He threw an arm to take in a wide pass at the battlefield.
"The wolves are soldiers taking an objective. They fight to win, while your World Eaters fight only to kill."
"Victory comes to the last man standing."
Angron smiled, showing a crescent of bloody teeth.
"That is true in the gladiator pits, Angron. But our father desires soldiers and generals, not gladiators. Death is a necessity. It comes for our foes, and it comes to our own soldiers when we cannot spare them. You spend your legion's lives like a lord spends coin. It cannot continue."
Angron had followed Russ's glance, but where the Wolf King gave the battle a mere glimmer of attention, Angron was paying full and amused attention.
"War is only won when every enemy is dead. A pacified enemy is still an enemy."
More gladiator wisdom, Angron. Look at my men surrounding you. Have you honestly learned nothing from this?
"Your men are losing, Leman. Let's take this to the last breath, eh? Let the bloodshed play out with a dance of cutting blades. We'll see which legion still stands."
Neither will stand, but you die the moment my men open fire.
"Death holds no sacred mystery to me, Russ. It holds no terror."
He laughed then, through the nails' pain, laughing hard enough that his eyes watered.
I may even welcome it. Are you empowered by our beloved father, dog? Can you really give me death, or has your posturing already gone too far? And I say once more, your men are losing. You know why? Because yours have something to live for. They care. Mine fight for pleasure, knowing any life outside of war is denied to them. Their own lives are as meaningless to themselves as they are to me. And that is the gift given by the butcher's nails. Warriors, not soldiers. Warriors with no fear of death and no caution to guard against it. They don't protect. They kill. They cast aside all thoughts of their own lives in the hunger to end others. Remember that, Russ. Remember it well.
For several moments, Lorgar had watched his brother's flawed face to make sure this wasn't some elaborate jest.
You didn't answer Russ's question. Did you truly learn nothing from that fight?
Angron blinked, the dull edge of surprise coming into his eyes.
What revelation should I have come to?
No.
Lorgar was almost breathless in disbelief.
No. Angron, you stubborn fool. None of that matters.
There were more dead wolves on that field than dead world eaters. That matters.
His men, Angron. His legion could have killed you. Whether the Emperor ordered it or not, Russ spared your life. He didn't retreat in shame, you arrogant... He was probably lamenting your thick skull all the way back to Terra, hoping you'd heed a rather consummate lesson in brotherhood and loyalty. Look what happened. Yes, you beat him in a duel. Yes, your men took down more of his than his of yours. And yet who won the battle?
The World Eaters!
Angron said without hesitation. Lorgar just stared at him for several seconds.
I appreciate that every living being must, by the very nature of perception, understand and process life in a different way. But even for you, brother, this is achingly obtuse.
You're saying the wolves won?
Angron looked more amused than confused.
How can you not see it?
Lorgar steepled his fingers, trying to rein in his own temper.
They won a victory worthy of engraving on their armor for all time. While you were glorying in your strength, Russ's sons were loyal enough to come to him, to surround you both, to threaten your life while you stood at the vanguard of your own legion. That may be the most comprehensive moment of outmaneuvering in the history of the Legiones Astartes. It's almost poetic in its elegance and emotional resonance. He proves his son's loyalty while yours leave you to die. He proves the damage the nails are doing to your legion. He proves the tactical strength of taking an objective rather than fighting purely to kill. He spares your life in the hope you will see all of this, and a lesson it cost him heavily to teach you. And your reaction is to grin and claim yourself the victor.
Angron didn't chuckle that time. Lorgar could see it in his brother's tense muscles. Some cognitive switch had clicked somewhere in his consciousness, and Angron's rage was rising again.
Only one of us ran away that night. He's weak.
God's blood.
Lorgar was still managing, barely, to speak calmly.
The Primarchs are the bridge between the Emperor and the species he leads. We are all weak, for we are all equal. All of us. We are humanity magnified, its virtues and its flaws.
I am not weak. I have never been weak.
You are not only weak if you fail to understand Russ's lesson. You are also a fool.
Someone in this universe wanted him to live. not to be a tool. A father, a butcher for imperial conquest. Someone in this universe wanted him to live because they loved him. The realization was almost unbearable. As to the truth of his sons, if Lorgar was correct, the 12th Legion's nails were of a worse variety than even he endured. His sons had escaped that by rewriting themselves to be devoid of any positive human trait. But he, Angron, was not incapable. And the hammering thought that the wolves and Russ had indeed won was a sobering thought. A victory worthy of engraving on their armor for all time, Lorgar had called it. A demonstration that Angron was weak, because he did not fight with his sons. In truth, he had hated them. They had been his chains to the Emperor that forced him to cling to life. But what about now? Now they had chosen rebellion, and followed him into it. Perhaps the roles had reversed, and he was their master holding chains they willingly clamped around their own necks. The bond between father and son. They had fought on the sands, twisted the rope. They had even given their sanity to him, hammering nails into their own scalps. In the month-long travel towards New Syria, for the first time Angron was seen in the Legion's museum aboard the Conqueror, reading and pausing for long conversations with the archivists, when his skull aches allowed him the patience to do so. Kharn and the Legion, they could not hide their shock, as the Red Angel chose to sit with them. Angron drank with them. He watched their gladiatorial duels. He even laughed as they laughed, and shared in brotherhood in a way few Primarchs enjoyed with their men. For 1 month, despite the ticking of the nails in his head, the 12th Legion had the Primarch they so desperately craved. They had a father who would, for the first time in over a century, chose to live. 2 tears rolled down the face of a man who had buried his humanity behind an ocean of blood. Angron stood within the very Nusyrian mountains he had first seen as a terrified child. Upon the ground he stared at bleached bones of those he had called family. All dead, he said softly. My brothers, my sisters. Lorgar made to stand next to his brother, their respective legions behind, not daring to interrupt the moment. I should have died here. I did die here. The Primarch of the World Eaters is nothing but a shade, an echo. This is where I belong. The greatest battle of my life, and it was stolen from me. He took me. He dragged me into the sky. The Emperor, the god-darned Emperor. The grief was overwhelming. A magnifying of the pain he had felt every day for over 100 years. Lorgar met his brother's gaze, his golden eyes fierce. But why? Why did he let your army die? Why did he steal you in teleportation flare, when he could have remained here for a time, as he did on so many other worlds? He had a legion, your legion, in orbit, Angron. The grief turned to rage. Pure rage. I'll never know why. He never answered me, but he'll pay as the High Riders paid. And when I stand before him on Terra, I will ask again. And then Lorgar, our father, will answer. Angron lifted his head, looking at the city of those who had murdered his family and stolen his life. Lorgar followed his gaze as it fell upon Desia. Within the capital of Desia, the household captain of House Thalkir was sobbing as a giant loomed over her. Angron, Thalkir died 100 years ago, she whimpered. He fled the battle of Delshika Ridge. The court was frozen in petrified fear. Kharn, Argyltal and Lorgar stood behind Angron, the legions occupying the city as the Red Angel began to twitch. You lie, woman. You will tell the truth now, Angron barked. The rage building within his chest was so hot he was almost in disbelief. The woman froze, unable to speak anymore. Angron killed her for it. Angron was drooling, blood leaking from his nose as he turned to another guard. You! Angron bellowed. 100 years ago, the man whined. A legend, an old story. Angron Thalkir and the rebel army, massacred in the mountains. You. The army died to a man. Angron Thalkir left them to die. Pin drop silence. No, that was never my name. Never. I refuse a slave's name. Angron was vibrating with bubbling rage until he froze. Kharn, Algotal, Angron said with a coldness that frightened even the Astartes. I want every World Eater and Word Bearer to heed a simple order. Anything, sire, Kharn said. Speak, and it will be done, said Argotal. Angron closed his eyes. Kill everyone in this city, then kill everyone on this world. Screams and violence erupted around the entire world, as every man, woman, every high rider and lowly slave, every animal and sign of life began to die. A civilization died in blood-curdling screams, from mad berserkers and savage hymns venerating dark gods. From sunrise to sunset, Angron killed and killed. The skulls of his Eaters of Cities pinned to his waist, so that they might witness the long vengeance, until the skies became alive with fire. The World Eaters and Word Bearers fleet had made a desperate pivot towards an approaching force that vastly outnumbered them. Drop pods rocketed down from the sky as the vengeance of Kalth had arrived. Guilliman, his Ultramarines and Titan legions. In the ruins of Deschia, the livery of Ultramar began to pour out and take foothold. The World Eaters and Word Bearers were waiting for them, yet instead of the serene, disciplined lines they expected, they found warriors with marked armor and burning hate in their swings. Word Bearer units marched, droning black hymns and chanting sermons from the Book of Lorgar, bearing corpse-strewn icons on befouled metal, and bleached bones above their regiments, as the World Eaters scrambled in blood-slicked marble armor, their hordes of chain axes and bolters careening into shield walls of Bolter and Gladius. Angron burst through a concrete wall, his blood trailing from 100 wounds as he ploughed through the Ultramarines. The skulls in his waist rattled at the enormous tread that brought him to the sight that made his blood roar. Rabute, Guilliman, and Lorgar looked up to the charging Red Angel, forcing Guilliman to back away from Lorgar. Both of their armor was cracked as they fixed their gaze upon Angron. Guilliman was different. Gone was the noble patrician of before, for now there was hate in his eyes. You too, Guilliman growled. My brothers, what a sorry sight you've become. Traitors, heretics, no better than the treasonous cultures we've squashed for the last 200 years. Did you learn nothing, either of you? I've heard Lorgar speaking heresies already. What brought you so low, brother? Did the machine in your skull finally refashion your loyalty into madness? They let me dream. They give me peace, Angron growled. What would you know of struggle, perfect son? When have you fought against the mutilation of your mind? When have you done anything more than tally compliances and polish your armor? Childish, Guilliman sighed, gesturing to the burning, dying city. Does it really come down to this? So pitifully childish. Which one of us landed on a paradise of civilization, to be raised by a foster father, Rabute? Which one of us was given army to lead after training in the halls of Macragian High Riders? Which one of us inherited a strong, cultured kingdom? You're still a slave, Angron. enslaved to your past, blind to the future, too hateful to learn, too spiteful to prosper. With dual Mechanicum forged chainswords, Angron lunged at Guilliman, the brothers trading blows too fast for the human eye to track. Goring strikes flecked pieces of bronze and blue armor equally, until Guilliman slammed his fist into Angron's chest. The bandolier of Angron's family skulls fell to the ground. Guilliman looked him in the eye, and then crushed them underfoot. Angron roared, the concoction of rage and grief greater than anything he had felt before. The nails snapped taut, almost killing him as he lunged again at Guilliman. The Master of Ultramar was no match for this renewed fury. It took every ounce of skill to ward off the killing strikes, leaving them both inert to a dark chanting Lorgar had begun to shout. The skies above New Syria tore open. Storm clouds formed from the ghosts of 100 murdered worlds began to rain blood on the dead city below. The song, the desolation of Ultramar wrought in kind a storm of violent power, an offering Lorgar directed towards the avatar of rage. A tortured soul of pain and torment. Angron staggered back. He tried to claw at his own flesh, howling as the energies of chaos began to warp his form. Bones jutted out. Sinew and crimson skin ran liquid, as Angron howled in a pain greater than any the nails had inflicted before. Crimson fire mixed with the blood of the slain enveloped Angron, swarming until it burst out in a psychic explosion that killed nearly all of his librarian sons. New Syria had burned. Legionaries had killed each other in their thousands from dusk till dawn, but all froze, bearing witness to the molten avatar of human nightmare. A cloven beast, with crimson skin and leathery wings, howled. Angron of the Red Sands was gone, and in his place was a brother's salvation, a form that could never die. Angron, demon primarch of chaos, chosen of the blood god, Kharn. Through crimson eyes, Angron spotted Legion Master Lork, the last warhound in his contempted dreadnought chassis, Lorgar at his feet, wounded by a son's rage. The snarling demon leapt forward, tearing the last warhound apart. "Blood," said Lorgar, rising, "for the blood god." Kharn massaged his temples, trying his best to maintain coherent speech, until next the nails took over. New Syria was long ashes. The armada of Guilliman had limped off in defeat, yet there was no victory. He had saved him, Lorgar proclaimed, saved his brother from certain death, and granted him immortality through the primordial truth of chaos. But they had lost him, their father. How cruel was the universe to give them the bond they had mutilated their bodies for, only to lose their father and have a true monster instead. The Angron that burdened himself with the dreams and pain of others. The man who had wanted to die by a family's side. The man who proclaimed to kill tyrants. Now it was no man. It was something else that stalked the inner decks. The stink of chaos over months began to infect the sailing World Eater's fleet. Where once water, now blood flowed through its pipes. Corridors became infested with warp taint, infesting the minds of the serfs first, and then the Legion. A mewling creature cowered in the dark, barely sentient. A vestige of all the worst impulses of a tortured soul. And it asked Kharn for one thing. It asked for skulls. Skulls to build a skull throne.
Father.
Kharn freezes. The word, half formed upon his lips, and yet spoken aloud. It brings him up short. Kharn scans the darkness in the chamber recesses, the spaces between the skull piles. There, Angron's eyes smolder with their own internal light, though far less so than the last time he stood before him in this place. Then, his inhuman gaze had been fierce and fearsome, so that not one of them could long hold it. The murderous glare of the god's most lethal creation.
Sire, it is Kharn of the 8th Company.
Kharn.
Kharn, sire.
Silence, then.
Grave Grub Kharn. Yes, I remember you.
It is the most lucid Angron has been for months.
How long do they live when no one takes their skulls?
Kharn cannot recall the last time anyone exchanged this many words with him. He slowly, carefully lowers himself to the floor, making sure to keep their eyes locked the entire time. Kharn will answer any question, no matter how mundane, if it will hold his father here in the moment just for a while longer.
Mortals are feeble things, sire. Without intervention, they will endure for less than 100 years, and much of that is spent in pain. Do you remember the Red Sand, sire?
Kharn asks quickly.
Do you remember the honor of the Caldera Remissum? Do you remember what it signifies?
Angron twitches. He peers at Kharn once more, gusting from his snout. Kharn continues.
When we found you, we did not know what you wanted of us. Not really. Nothing we did could earn your approval. The rulers of Nuceria, the High Riders, quickly made their peace with Leman after your rebellion was ended, and gladly joined with the Empire of Ultramar. Though you would not allow us to return there, we thought to mark the sacrifice that you and the Deshayan gladiators had unknowingly made for us, for the Imperium.
Kharn plucks up a helmet from the floor. The eye lenses are broken, the grille dented inwards. The Primarch's expression is unreadable, but he has not killed Kharn yet. That is something. Kharn turns the helmet over in his hands.
Here are the twin crests of the Remissum, like bladed horns. When a warrior in the arena knew their mind was failing, when they had spilled too much blood and could no longer find pleasure in anything else, then they would wear them as a warning to their foes. The bout would be sanguis extremis, to the death. My brothers and I saw that it was a bold and noble thing to proclaim oneself beyond hope, sire, beyond redemption. And so, as the warhounds became world eaters, many of your veteran companies adorned their helms in this fashion. We wanted you to know that we mourned with you, and that every battle we fought at your side would be to the death.
Not for you! The mantle is not for you!
Then you remember enough to know that it did not end well, sire. We tried to learn of your past, and you killed us for it. We tried to celebrate the breaking of chains, and you killed us for it. We tried to teach you how the Imperium wages war, and instead you hammered the butcher's nails into our skulls so that we would eventually kill one another and spare you the effort.
Without warning, Angron let out a roar of inhuman hatred and rage. A roar loud enough to rattle his armor plates, and he sweeps his great blade around in flashing arcs. His throne of skulls, the throne of the Legion built at his command, is obliterated in a single heartbeat. Chipped teeth and fragments of bone rain down. Kharn keeps his eyes closed for as long as he dares, and that can only be a second or two. The demon is breathing hard, less than a meter from his face. When Angron speaks, Kharn can see the sharp, iron fangs glinting in his maw.
If you wish to prove yourself to me, Kharn of the Legion, then you must follow this path to its end. We were all born to bleed, but the god's favor is not given easily or quickly. You must pay for it with blood and skulls. Blood enough to drown the stars, and skulls beyond number. The Crusader will tell you as much.
You mean Lord Aurelian?
Angron does not appear to recognize the name. Kharn exhales slowly.
As we feared they would, sire. The word bearers have left us. Our fleet now stands alone, deep within Ultima Segmentum.
Then why do you keep me here? Why do you keep me in the dark?
This is your flagship, sire. Your place is with us. We spill blood together, so that you may remain.
Angron shudders, screwing his eyes shut, and letting out a vile sound that could almost be a whimper.
No! No! The Legion is not mine! Not anymore! The Blood God calls to me! He is calling me to his side! To...
Sire, I assure you we are free to...
No! Reality itself drags against these imperfect limbs! My strength is failing! I should be so much more! But you will not let...
The Primarch begins to claw at his own face.
This is not freedom! It is slavery!
Kharn falls to his knees. It wounds his soul to see him suffer like this, and to know that they keep him here for their own selfish reasons. It is far more than slaughterer for slaughter's sake. It is for their sins. They have shackled Angron to the material realm, as Lorgar had urged them, because they simply do not wish to lose their father again. Kharn does not wish to lose him. But if this loss of self is the price for immortality, then Kharn never wishes to follow in his footsteps. Kharn does not wish to lose him, but he will not lose himself. The Demon Prince rises to his full height, opening those leathery wings so wide they almost touch the pillars on each side of the hall. The deck beneath his cloven hooves begins to shudder, as otherworldly energies roil about him. He roars again, bringing dust from the arches above.
I will have blood! Blood! Blood for the Blood God! Blood for my Lord Kharn!
Perturabo and his Iron Warriors had found them. The 12th Legion, the rambling horde on the remains of another world butchered. For nearly a decade, the Horus Heresy has ravaged the Imperium, and changed traitor and loyalist alike forever. But now Horus is ready to unseat the false Emperor upon Terra, and begins the summoning of his traitorous brothers. From a ridge shrouded in mist, Perturabo, Lord of Iron, caught a glimpse of a single warrior. He was twitching, as if restraining some great impulse. "Leave," Kharn growls. "Leave before it is too late." But the moment the Iron Warriors had taken defensive positions, it was already too late. From the mist, the stampeding horde of butchers, lost to the nails, careened towards the 4th Legion trench. From the sky, the silhouette of a winged giant descended. Angron slammed into the earth, molten rock and steam oozing from his enlarged crimson form. The Iron Warrior line barked with bolt of fire into the onrushing World Eaters, the berserkers slamming into careful shield walls. From the Lord of Iron's side, his constructs surrounded the demon, unleashing point-blank scatter rounds. Blood cooked and rose in charring globules. By any reason, the creature should be dead, but this was simply not a creature of destruction. It was a force of annihilation that was not meant to share the same realm as mortals. An axe formed in Angron's hand, and he began to swing. Its edge was a slit of sharpened light. Reality tore as it cut, and smoke bled from the wounds in the crumbling iron circle. But to the Lord of Iron they had already fulfilled their purpose. Angron slumped forward, his demonic form gouged and pouring wounds. But the rage within was pure and blinding. Demonic axe descended towards the Lord of Iron, only for a Primarch forged hammer to slam into Angron's chest. "You are weak," snarled Perturabo. "You are a slave. You were born a slave, and a slave you remain." Demon and superhuman traded blows as their sons died around them, each dealing goring strikes. "You have grown weaker, Angron," Perturabo taunted. "I have remade my strength. while you have sold out yours in despair. The tumult of punishment finally took its toll, and the howling demonic Angron faltered. An opportunity seized by Perturabo. Pummeling blows from Perturabo's Forge Breaker, kicking Angron down to his knees. Again and again the hammer rocketed into Angron's bleeding form. Armor shattered, teeth and bone broke, until the chosen of the Blood God was slumped to the floor. The fighting around the two Primarchs ceased, as Angron dragged his charred and bleeding form up. "You have danced too long on the shoreline," said Angron. His voice held no anger, no rage. It was empty. All is sand, red sand under our feet. Now the tide comes in. Perturabo turned towards the sky. An Ultramarine's fleet had broken the warp storms. The World Eaters and Iron Warriors' Vanguard fleet was outnumbered, and if they stayed, they would be destroyed from orbit. "You will die here," said Angron. "You will die with us." Perturabo said nothing for a long moment. Then, "Angron," said Perturabo. Angron seemed to flinch, as if his name was a shock to him, as if the man underneath the beast was a buried thing, drowning and rarely surfacing from an ocean of rage. "I speak to the warrior who was my brother in life. You cannot die. You are cursed to the Eternal. You may stand here and watch your sons and mine fall, but you will not be released. You will never be released, not if a river of blood flows." "It matters not, so long as it flows," roared Angron. "You have a choice," said Perturabo. "Perhaps the last choice you can make." Angron froze. "I shall stand with you, Angron. We were only brothers by blood, but here and now, I shall stand with you, if you choose. We shall fight, and I shall fall as you wished to fall before our father denied you the death you craved. Or you can come with me and face our father. I put my life and the lives of my warriors in your hands, brother," said Perturabo. The demon Angron rose to his full height, towering above Perturabo. The Iron Warriors and World Eaters stood in bated breath, violence on a knife's edge. Angron made his choice, the last he would ever have. From the world of Ulanor, where once a favored son was crowned War Master, the forces of the traitor legions assembled. Horus, chosen of Chaos, led the Dark Triumph, each legion sacrificing a portion of their warriors to the Pantheon, as the War Master's armada finally roared towards the heart of the Imperium, Terra. Hundreds of thousands of void ships slammed into the minefield outside of Pluto, traitor army and merchant fleets that soak up the fire and explosions, as las cannon batteries unleashed from the Imperial Fist, Blood Angel and White Scar fleets. Cathedral ships the size of Titans die in their hundreds, as a never-ending wave of traitors systematically push closer and closer towards the throne world, through rituals of chaos. Strewn in the blood and broken bonds, the sun goes dark, its light eclipsed through a black scar in real space. Claws and wisps of phantoms line the edges of the main traitor Astartes fleet that plows through. The vengeful spirit, the pride of the Emperor and the Conqueror, tear into real space above humanity's birthplace. "I will be first upon Terra," roared Angron. "You are not worthy. It is my honor. Kharn demands it. The blood decrees it. You shall burn in lakes of fire for your temerity." Again, Angron's rage was unsated. The weeks had passed, and yet still the Red Angel and his World Eaters had not set foot upon Terra. The bombardments had never ceased. Terra was burning. Yet those of the warp, such as Angron and his demonic brethren, were barred by the Emperor's telenetic wards. The War Master Horus had not moved from his dark throne, empowered by the Four. As the War Master battled their father within the warp, weakening a grip that would not release fast enough for Angron. Kharn walked cautiously through the mortal quarters. A slick-dried layer of blood covered nearly every inch. A mountain of corpses clung to the walls, most dying from the trampling and suffocation of avoiding the monster. Angron had been unleashing himself upon legionaries daring to rush ahead, before he had a chance to feel Terry's sand and blood first. Kharn unhooked the teleporter beacon and proceeded in a crouch with his axe ready. He did not need to fight to win, only long enough to tag his Genefather with the device. "Father," he called. "Father, it is I, Kharn." His amplified voice echoed through the dark hold. "Kharn. Lord Khorne demands blood and skulls. Do you not hear his cries? Blood and skulls!" The guttural voice grew. "I do not hear him, my lord." Kharn lied. "You will. He values you, my son." Heavy footsteps thumped deep in the stacks. Knocked chains jangled. "These slaves are unworthy offerings for the blood god. But you, Kharn, your skull would make a fine gift." Angron came out of nowhere. The hulking winged. Red mass smashed next to him. Kharn parried the blow with the chain axe Gorechild, and felt every bone in his body ripple. "I am the Avatar of Rage!" the Red Angel screamed. "The power of the warp runs through me, my son. I will not be chained like a dog any longer. Not by the Emperor, not by Horus, and not by you. You are a fool to have come here. I will kill you. There will be blood. There will be skulls. Khorne cares not whence the blood flows." Kharn leapt from the shadows, behind his demonic father, and sunk the teleporter into his leathery flesh. Angron howled and sent Kharn flying, his body smashing into the blood-slick walls with a crunch. "You have no order! Attacking from behind!" Yellow eyes blazed. "No true son of mine would stoop so low. We are warriors!" Kharn readied himself. His muscles burned. Gorechild shook in his weakened grip. "Father," he said in a drool-soaked growl, "I do not wish to fight you. You have no choice. There is only war." The black sword hurtled down again. Kharn could not block it, he knew, but he held Gorechild ready to deflect the blade, and prepared for the blow that would land before he died. Lightning skittered over the demon Primarch. Wisps of corporean streamed off his body in a white fog. Then, with a clap of air rushing suddenly into a vacuum, Angron was gone. Angron appeared in a blaze of teleport light. His black sword was still chopping down, and he smashed into the deck of an unfamiliar room. He wrenched the weapon from the metal, ready to slay his son for the greater glory of the blood god. But Kharn was not there. Angron growled. His rage was checked for a moment. The ship smelled strange. Its sounds were different. He sniffed the air. He was alone. Alone within a prison designed for a Primarch. The Nightfall. An entire maze vessel gifted to Conrad Kurz from the mind of Perturabo. Its torturous chambers still reeked from the blood of a brother. Vulcan. Its labyrinth halls could keep a Primarch lost within, but it could not hold a demon Primarch of Khorne forever. Lasfire from mounted guns began to pepper Angron. He raised his axe and sword, and began to obliterate. Screams of blood and skulls echoed and reverberated through the nightfall. As the encirclement of the Imperial Palace began, ceramite walls were sheared through as a demigod's fury sought to escape. Crude machines fitted with Salamander Isfahan survivors threw themselves at Angron, The unwilling pilot's torment finally ended by axe and sword. After days, Angron finally cut his way to the edge, a strike plunging him into the vacuum of space. Atop the titan of metal, Angron peered down at Terra, catching sight as his own Legion ships were soaring down towards the throne world. Horus, Horus, Angron had shouted. Against the laws of nature, his voice was heard in the vacuum. Angron leapt, cloven wings trailing as he rocketed down towards the place of his birth. It hit the ground, sending out a billow of flame that raced over traitor and loyalist alike. "Father!" roared the giant. His furious, brazen voice was empowered by the violence, thundering louder than any cannonade, and audible over the racket of battle. "I have come for you!" A creature of rippling crimson skin and leathery wings stood giant. It was rage incarnate, and the Imperial trench line filled with mortal and Astartes froze in fear. The World Eaters came loping behind, their chain axes revving as they chanted praise to their lord and the Blood God. Over White Scar, Blood Angel and Death Guard corpses, Angron and his sons began hacking skulls from the dead and living alike. "Blood and skulls!" the giant howled. "Blood for the Blood God!" Across the lines of the Helios Gate, World Eaters and Night Lords stormed, clashing into the ranks of Imperial Fists and Blood Angels. Angron rose into the air, catching sight of another angel upon the wall. Sanguinius. Oh, so perfect Sanguinius. From the sky, Angron soared towards his brother in challenge, only to crash into the Emperor's telenetic shield, sending him staggering back. "Sanguinius," Angron growled. "Face me, let us fight, you and I." "You shall not pass over these walls, nor under or through them, until our father decrees it," said Sanguinius. "You know this to be true," Angron snarled. "Then come out and fight me, Red Angel to Red Angel, upon this field of battle where father can no longer interfere." Sanguinius simply saluted his brother, pity in his eyes for the man he could have been. "We will fight, my brother, but not today," said Sanguinius. Angron roared and wheeled around, plunging into the mortal army line and sending motes of blood and mud into the air. World Eaters and Night Lords tumbled from the walls as the Imperials closed the Helios Gate. The siege had reached the first walls, and when Horus had weakened the Emperor enough, Angron would breach it. Weeks, months, the skies of Terra have darkened to a permanent night, clogged with ash and smoke. The outer walls have fallen, and the bodies grow in their thousands and in their millions. The jewel of the Imperium had been made ugly by Dawn's defensive redesign, and now it was little more than scarred rubble. Loyalists looked to the sky in terror, as in almost relentless assaults a winged creature with cloven tread hunts. He is an unleashed beast, a horrific fusion of man and demon, no longer on the leash of the War Master. The Lion's Gate spaceport had fallen, and finally the first true demons manifested on Terra. The Emperor's psychic ward shrinks more and more, and soon the inner sanctum will be breached. From spires that reach to the clouds and to gatehouses, they were swarmed in the battle of hundreds of thousands of Astartes, where a red angel rampages heedlessly, the nails in his head now singing as his son's designs. He is a rewired creature, who no longer lets the nails give him peace. Only pleasure at the blood and skulls he offers to Kharn. A lone human atop a pile of rubble screams at Angron. The snarling beast turns slowly. The smoke and soot in the air is a near-permanent haze. The man is screaming at him, a lone flag beholding the Emperor of Mankind behind him. Angron can smell his fear. For most to look upon him, it inspires unbearable dread and rage. yet this one defies him. "Come on then," the man yells. "Show me what all the fuss is about." Angron sloped forward and began to charge. "Throne of Terror! Throne of Terror!" The man roared in defiance. Bathed in blood, Angron raised his fist to the sky. He flexed his arms, spread his gigantic wings and let out a roar so loud, entire structures shook, and the banner of the Emperor, soaked in sprays of blood, slipped from its broken pole and fluttered to the ground. Angron brought down his fists. The Eternity Gate, the bastion before the inner sanctum and throne room itself. For months, the layered defense has fought unrelenting waves of traitor assault. Fulgrim became bored. Magnus the Red had disappeared. Mortarion had been banished to the warp at the cost of Jagatai Khan's life. Perturabo had abandoned the War Master. Yet the last gate stood before the traitor host. Millions have died. Almost all equipment on both sides is failing. The warp runs rampant, as demons run alongside traitor assaults. Sanguinius, the great angel, stands. His wounds are grievous. Yet the corpse of the mighty demon prince Kabanda dissipates back into the warp before him. A roar robs the loyalists of their victory, as a shadow is rocketing down to meet his brother. On white wings, Sanguinius soars up to meet Angron. The angel and demon clash in the air. Beneath a sky the colour of blood, drawing breaths that taste of murder. The first impact of blade against blade is a metallic thundercrack, while their sons wage the war below, fighting and dying in the shadows of their father's wings. A searing cut blinds Angron, not before his monstrous claws grasp Sanguinius around the head and chest. His sight is gone, yet the smell of the angel's existing wounds is sweet. The brothers plunge through the clouds and rocket into the ground. Mud, ash and blood splashing out in a wave. Angron begins to smash Sanguinius' head against the rock again and again, until Angron's arm obliterates. Sanguinius rises and discards his Inferno pistol and raises his sword. Terran steel meets black demonic edge, in a clang that reverberates for miles around them. The brothers are snarling in each other's face. Then they are elsewhere. They are on New Syria, witnessing the sunset in the cold of the mountain air. It is the night before the High Riders are coming. The Eaters of Cities are still alive and around them. Angron feels his family's presence. He feels the nails sting, but still he is happy. Then the vision shifts back to terror, as broken and bloody Sanguinius thrusts his spear through Angron's gut. "Die," Sanguinius tells him, with the gentleness of giving a great gift. "I free you from this torment." Angron's mouth simply smiles, as he batters the angel away. Then he gives chase. Once again the two angels soar into the clouds, over the furious battle below. Sanguinius is faster, but Angron is stronger. "This is your chance. This is what you were born for. Do not fail me, Angron." The twisted voice of Horus rams into his mind. From the clouds, the angel's spear rams into Angron's form, sending him careening into the middle of the battlefield. His impact crushes 100 Astartes on both sides. The nails abate for a moment. Sanguinius is faster, so Angron will draw him in. Angron rises to his full height, his wounds already smoking and re-knitting. He plunges forward into the Blood Angels, sending bodies tumbling and cutting them apart into chunks. Like a beacon, Sanguinius plunges down from the sky, slamming into Angron and beginning the trading of blows. The fury of exchange is unmatched. It is a blur of sparks and blood even to the Astartes' eyes. Yet Sanguinius' strikes become deflections, then goring trades. The Lord of the Red Sand sees his dawn upon the angel's face. How the longer they fight, the weaker only one of them becomes. A giant's talon rips forward and clutches Sanguinius' face. "Brother," Angron wheezes. It is a struggle for Angron to speak, but a lifetime of business is dragged up, seeing through the agony in his brother's beautiful eyes. Angron! Sanguinius splatters back. Angron pulls his brother's face closer and watches the life leave him as he begins to squeeze. The voice of Horus is screaming again in Angron's head, but it is already too late. An agony so unbearable sears through Angron's skull. It is fire and ice, a pain so great that all other pains before is nothing. Sanguinius, his hands wrapped around the tendrils of the butcher's nails, wrenches harder as Angron howls. Unbridled clarity twitches through Angron. He remembers. He is Angron, Lord of the Red Sands. He is the son of Gladiator Onomaeus. He is a scared boy in the mountain. He is the bulwark of others' pain. He is a freedom fighter. He is an eater of cities. He is a father to sons. Angron's vision flickers. And there, behold in the bloodshot, pinprick eyes of Sanguinius, is a true rage. A pure, naive thing born of true justice. It is everything Angron ever wanted, and the spike of true and utter jealousy magnifies his pain. From behind the veil, Angron hears laughter. A god laughing at him, because it cares not whence the blood flows. The death of the Lord of the Red Sands is as pleasing to his divinity as the death of any other champion. Cables tear. Angron is writhing as Sanguinius begins to rip the top of his skull from his head. In that bleakest moment of pain, on both a physical and spiritual level, Angron commits the greatest sin to his existence. A whining "No!" escapes his maw, as Angron begs for mercy. Sanguinius tears Angron's butcher's nails, scalp and brain, and raises it into the air like a bloody trophy. The corpse of Angron falls slack before the Eternity Gate, and his soul flows into the warp. Angron's mind awakens. He is alone. He is dead. His mind is clear. For the first time in centuries, his mind is his own. He feels peace. He has earned his black twist, and it is glorious. The relief is unlike anything he had felt before. He is a free man. He is now no longer someone's slave. Angron begins to hear laughter. Then the pain begins to return. The rage of a war god begins to grow like a heat within him, as the monstrous form of human nightmare begins to reforge. Angron begins to howl. He raises his axes and sword, as his lord prepares him to fight a war that will never end. Blood for the blood god, he screams. Skulls for the skull throne.